Buy Black Podcast, Episode 8. Reviving the entrepreneurial spirit in the Black community by developing spiritual entrepreneurs. Welcome to Buy Black, the only podcast dedicated to helping you find, connect with, and support Black-owned businesses. We're on a mission to bring consumers and business owners together to ignite the global Black economy. I'm your host, Gerald Jones, and if you're a Black business owner or a socially conscious consumer, you've joined the right community. Ready? Let's get to work. Hey guys, welcome back to the show. Thanks for joining me today for episode 8 with Pastor Eugene Udell. Today, you guys are in for a treat. Pastor Udell is the owner of 4 different businesses, and the conversation that he and I are going to have today, you just got to listen to it. He's been an entrepreneur his entire life, all 60 plus years of it. And the amount of wisdom, knowledge, and just teaching that he does for me specifically in this episode is extremely strong. Like I told you guys on a previous episode, I've kind of gone away from trying to do that strict interview model and just turn it into a conversation. And the conversation that we had today actually kind of took a turn to where I kind of move out of interviewer mode and I started moving kind of into mentee mode, because he was giving so much valuable knowledge that I wanted to pick his brain about ways that I could improve this project, this Buy Black podcast project for you and the community going forward. And so you're going to hear a lot of that in the conversation. You're going to hear a lot of his experiences, his growth, mistakes that he's made in the past, as well as successes that he's had, and the way that he's molded those into lessons that he teaches to the community now, both pastoring his church and running his businesses and getting everything started on new projects. And so, I mean, it was so much good stuff that we got on the phone, and next thing you knew, 3 hours had gone by, and every minute of it was gold. So this is going to be a much longer episode than what you're used to getting, but it is an extremely powerful episode. And based on the conversation that we had in this episode, I made some decisions about how I'm going to do this project going forward. So at the end of the episode, just stick around. I spent a couple of minutes talking about the new direction and the way that I plan to work this project going forward. So because this episode is so long, I don't want to take too much of your time getting into it to get started. So as with our previous shows, I just start the recording as soon as we get on the phone. I'm going to let you guys listen to everything from the beginning to the end, this powerful conversation with Pastor Eugene Udell. Y'all enjoy, and then stick around, and we'll talk to you after the show. Hello, Mr. Udell.
Hey, Gerald, how are you?
I'm doing really well. Had a pretty good weekend so far. How about yourself?
Man, I'm doing great. I can't complain, man.
Awesome.
Can't complain.
I think you're right. It's a pretty good connection that we got going over the landline. Yeah,
that landline is better.
Okay. So how have things been? It's been a few weeks since we connected.
Yeah, it's all been good, Gerald. Life as usual, man.
Okay. Awesome.
Just in the battle here, trying to make things happen, man.
So what's going on? What's new? What's been happening since the last time we talked? I know you were still working on building out the 3-on-3 basketball league. Yeah,
we're working on that project. Currently, I have my web designer. She's working on my website, putting it all together, and also the infrastructure, how we're going to go about setting up, the league. We're going to try to do the e-commerce mostly, and trying to do the finances and stuff.
Okay.
Or at least make them. Yep.
Okay. Well,
so that's a little slower process, than I like, but I don't have the expertise to do that, so I have to move at her pace with that.
Now, on with the website, or specifically with setting up the e-commerce part of it?
The website and setting up the logistics of that.
Yeah, I'm the exact same. I've tried to. I had somebody set up a website for me at the beginning of this year, and I didn't like what he did, so I just completely gutted it and then redesigned it myself. And then later I tried to design a website myself, and that didn't really work out. So right now I've got somebody actually building my website for this project, for this podcast project. And I'm waiting on that to finalize as well. But it's the same thing. It's a slow process of, I don't have the expertise, so I can't rush you. Just as long as it comes out, what I want in the end, I guess that's the important thing.
Well, it really is, and I'm the kind of person that when I get a project in mind, I'm ready to move on it.
Mm-hmm.
And I like for things to be moving, but things don't always work out like that.
Yeah, I'm in the same exact same boat. So you should move the pieces that you can, and then learn how to be patient with the other ones, as long as there's something happening.
And obviously that's for our learning. God obviously is trying to teach us something through that process.
Yeah, that patience is tough.
It really is.
So what I wanted to do today, because the last time we talked, there was just so much good communication happening, and I don't want to try to harness that into like an interview format or anything. I think we just kind of started with you telling me about your story and everything all the way back from, growing up down south and your grandma and all this stuff just kind of fed this whole picture that I wish we could have just recorded that first conversation. But why don't we see if we can just capture lightning in a bottle again, and I'll just let you just kind of start rolling and talk about your story again, because the way my Skype works is as soon as I turn it on, it's got a little bot inside of it that starts recording an audio file. So everything we're talking about now is going to be in the recording, and then I can move and cut things as we see fit. But It's no reason with the podcast to, start in with the same stuff you would have on a radio show where you got to say this and that, because I can just put that stuff in later. So how about I just hand it over to you and just let you just start with telling me your story and everything, because we'll get around to, the businesses and the pastoring and the leadership and all that stuff that just came out. I think just came from you, talking about who you are and how you came to be.
All right, that'll work.
Oh, it's on you. You got it.
Oh, okay, dear. Very good. Yeah, well, I'll tell you a little bit about myself. Of course, my name is Eugene Udell, Sr. I'm 61 years old, so I guess in some people's eyes, that's pretty old to be on the journey that I'm on. But it's been my course of life, of journey that I've been on for some time. This podcast has to deal primarily with by Black. There's obviously an emphasis on entrepreneurship. So that's been something that's been ingrained in me all of my life, basically, and it comes from my grandmother. My grandmother, Lottie Mae Udell, bless her heart. We call her Mama. Everybody call her Mama. And back in the day, those grandparents used to be the staple of the family. They were the ones that held the family together. You could go to grandma and granddad when you couldn't go to anyone else. Grandma and granddad used to be the banker. They used to be the counselors, the whole 9 yards. Those dynamics has changed now. But I watched her, and I'm talking about being raised in the Delta, supposedly the poorest part, of the South. It's agriculture mostly. But I watched her, what you would call today, start business. Now, obviously, it wasn't called that during that particular time, but what she used to do, she used to get candy, and she used to sell candy. And she used to use me to be a delivery boy for her candy business. I used to take candy to different people in the community and stuff, the older people and all of that. So that's been something that I've always been associated with in trying to establish and do something for yourself in that sense. And basically, it's just starting your own business. So she planted that seed in me, and I thank her so much for that. She used to sell product also. She had another business, and I mean, that's an excellent principle also. We must have multiple streams of income. See, she couldn't depend upon the farming. my granddad was the one that did the labor on the farm and stuff, and Mama took care of the home front and all of that, and she worked to the side also. But she had multiple streams of income. And when one has multiple streams of income coming in, you are in a great position because you don't have to rely on one source, which will at some point in time become a liability. People think they can take advantage of you when there's only one source of income, an employer. So she instilled these principles in. Now, obviously, the terminology wasn't that at that time, but those was the principles that she instilled in me. So that's something I always wanted to do. I wanted to always have something on my own, start something on my own. So from there, as I advanced on, I don't have a college education, what some people would call a formal education, but I've been educating myself all of my life and continuously doing so, taking classes, learning by trial and error, all those type things. Always open for new information. So I feel like that I've always been on the cutting edge, if you will, of advances of whatever is going on in society. So to me, that's education. One of the things that I used to do when I was working a job was that I watched what was going on as far as new inventions coming out, things of that nature. In other words, a business is all about supply and demand and meet the need. If there's a need, then that's the opportunity to take advantage of that situation, and obviously that one can make, some money off that situation. So the first business that I started when I was working in my early teens, I made what people would call those hanging pot hangers. I used to make those things, and I used to take them to my job and sell them. And I used to also take them around the community and sell them. So everyone in my community had pot hanging on their porches that they had purchased from me.
Wow. See, I remember my grandma having some of those on her front porch. Those
absolutely.
Hanging plants is just about eye level.
Yes, sir. That's exactly right. Now, I didn't come up with the trademark or anything on it. I'm just simply saying that I took advantage of the opportunity, supply and demand. They didn't have them during that particular time in my community, so I made them and sold them in my community. So that's just been, one of the things that was always appealing to me, that was exciting to me. It's always exciting to me to start something and do something brand new and then to start from scratch. So that's always, it's just been something to motivate me.
Now, a question I have on that, because I want to go back to a couple things here in a little bit, but a question I have on that specifically, what is it that catches your eye when you see an opportunity like that? Because I know for me, and I know for a lot of other people I talk to, like as soon as you see something out there that somebody else has already done and say, oh man, that's a good idea, I wish I had done that. And people just think that since somebody else has done it, that means you can't do it. But it sounds like your mentality is if this thing is out there and somebody else is doing it, but it's not here where I'm at yet, that's an opportunity for me to step in. So how do you recognize those opportunities versus the ones that might not be as good an opportunity?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, man. I think for myself, Gerald, I think it's all about being informed. And I think if a person will inform themselves about what's going on, or keep themselves informed, rather, about what's going on around them, that we can seize the moment with certain opportunities when it comes to entrepreneurship. I really think that that's a key, because business opportunities is all about meeting needs. And see, when it comes to meeting needs, that's a biblical principle. If a person is hungry, you give them something to eat. So there may be a need of a restaurant, for example, in a community. If no one is selling, for instance, vegetables in a community, then obviously there's a need there. there's no one repairing computers. Well, whatever the scenario is during that particular time, then that's an opportunity to siege that, the opportunity to advance that particular business. If one would take advantage of it and know what is going on during, that particular time. But if we don't keep ourselves informed about things, then obviously we always behind the eight ball, And I think that's what happened in most situations. I think those people who are able to be informed of what's going on and then to take advantage of those situations during that particular time, I think that's very important.
Okay.
Well, at least that's always been something that I've always tried to focus on. That I watch what is going on around my community, the city, whatever, and then I try to see where I can fit something in there that will work for me, something that I can tell or whatever.
And that's a new skill for me. Like, it sounds like that's the kind of thing that you would get, like watching your grandma and seeing her with the candy business and everything. That's not some huge revolutionary idea. It's just there was a need there, and she filled it, and she took action on it. And I think that's one of those things, just like any other skill, if you are surrounded by that in your youth, then your brain starts to work that way, to solve problems that way. I wasn't surrounded by that when I was growing up. I never really thought I could come up with an idea that nobody else had already done. Or when I saw something that looked, new and cool in the community or anything like that, like my first thought was never, how can I tweak that? Or how can I, take advantage, jump in and be in the marketplace too? And it's really hard to flip that switch later on in life. Like if we don't catch kids now, and start teaching them how to think that way on purpose, then it's really hard to catch them later and say, hey, think like an entrepreneur, think like a business owner. How can you fill this need in the community? It's a challenge. How have you done that? How have you taken everything that you learned from your grandma and then kind of passed that along? Because I know when we talked before, you've got several businesses that you're running now and that you raised your kids in. So talk to me a little bit about that process of running your businesses and then teaching those skills to your next generation.
See, I am a firm believer in Scripture. That's obviously is part of my DNA. So there are some foundational things that has been instilled in me through, those teachings of my grandmother and my grandfather. Because my grandfather was a Methodist pastor. So, there are certain things instilled in children. So, the Proverbs teach us that character affects the success or failure of the plan. See, a person can make plans, but if that person, Gerald, don't have character, then, that plan is pretty much in jeopardy. So a plan by itself is not enough. It also takes the character of the person. See, now what I mean about that, I always watched the character of my grandmother. See, she wasn't just selling candy just to sell candy, trying to become, rich or anything. And see, I'm not saying that she wasn't trying to provide for a family. Certainly, you need to do that. But she also gave away a lot of candy. There were people who couldn't afford to buy candy. So plan has to do with the person. So I want my children to watch me. Apostle Paul says something like this. He says, "Follow me as I follow Christ." If they can see the integrity in me, and they can see the things that I do and the reason that I do them, see, it's very easy for them to follow suit. But if you can't see the character in the individual, it's kind of hard to have vision for something that you never had a foundation for. So she laid the foundation for me, my grandmother and my grandfather, and it was primarily it was because of the character they had. You know, it wasn't that, you know, grandmother was such a brilliant, outstanding, you know, amazing business developer and all that. But what she put her hand to, it became successful. Now she may then make millions of dollars and all of that. And some people measure success about the numbers like that, but that's not necessarily success. She measured success about what all she could do for people. She was a giver. She believed in giving, as she taught us to give. So one of the ways that you're able to do that is how you're able to provide for yourself. If you're able to accumulate things, you know, if you have multiple things, then obviously you have the capacity to give more. And I think that that's one of the primary reasons that she wanted to start these businesses and stuff in order that she may be able to help other people. And see, that's part of my reasoning too. And that's part of what I want to instill in my children. You want to have your businesses. You want to have multiple sources of income. But you want to do these things in order that you can operate independently, that you won't become subservient or a slave to anyone, in order that you may be able to help your community. Obviously, first and foremost, you want to help your family, but you can help your community. And I mean, for all those that God put in your, you know, periphery, you're able to be a blessing to other people. That would be the best term, I guess, that I can use. And I think that comes from having, you know, that eye, that keen eye.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that is the spirit that I wanted to come to this podcast with, actually. So this is, you know, I've tried a few different businesses over this last year. Before this year, I haven't done anything entrepreneurial. Everything was, you know, I was a really, really, really good employee. I mean, I'm still a great employee. But I never had the mentality of I'm going to create something on my own until like the middle of last year, about this time last year. And I didn't actually start until the beginning of this year, literally January 1st. And I tried a few different things that I've been working on that are still kind of going. But this was the first project that I did that I said, you know, this is going to be huge. This is going to be something that I'm going to be doing for years to come. And I came at it hoping to have that same mentality that you have, that you're talking about. The only thing that's going to make this business, this podcast, and the website I'm going to build with it work is that I help Black-owned businesses make more money and stay in business. And I help people who want to buy from Black-owned businesses find them and be able to direct their dollars where they want to, because that's the thing that's the need, right? Like we see that every single day, and there's a whole bunch of people out here trying to fix it, but it's not catching. Like something is still missing, right? I think that's kind of what you're talking about.
It's the motivation of the people, Gerald. I think that's what's missing, because I think in many cases they are trying to take advantage of the people instead of helping the people.
Okay.
And there's a big difference there.
So talk to me about that. What do you mean there?
Well, see, I think just because people, what I have experienced in dealing with business people and people who look like myself also, a lot of times people, they are open to do business with you, but they are not necessarily in business to help you. They will take advantage of the resources you have. They don't mind getting your money and all those things, but I guess the motivation is that we are not in this to build something together, you know, to build stronger communities.
Gotcha.
So it goes back primarily to the integrity of the person, the motivation of the person. What is the motivating factor for one starting a business? You know, I really don't think a person should start a business if they negative towards people. If you don't want to be a people oriented business and really care for the people that you are reaching out to, I don't think a person even needs to get involved in a business like that.
I'd agree with that. Because, I mean, what is a business other than something that's there to serve people?
That's right.
Yeah.
You know the mentality of the Jews concerning that, right? Now, the Jews, their philosophy is that your service basically will make you rich. See, it's how well you serve someone. The better you serve someone, the more you're going to be in demand. If you have a business and you offer great service, if you can offer better service than anyone else, there it is right there, Gerald. You got your niche.
You got it.
And that's what it's all about. That stems from the integrity of the individual.
Yeah.
It don't come from without. It comes from within.
Yeah, and I'm seeing that, you know, and I keep relating everything you're saying back to me, but that's because I've been, you know, I slowed down on these episodes, and I've had a lot of time to think about, you know, where to go next, what to do next with this podcast, because there's so much stuff happening. I mean, those marches over in Virginia, and then we got hurricanes hitting our communities, and then, you know, we got all this stuff happening out here, and every bit of it I'm looking at, I'm saying, what can I do? How can I do this, that, and the other? And it's just, I'm not big enough yet. You know, this podcast isn't big enough yet. What can I do with it where it is right now? And the thoughts that keep coming to me is looking at how can I take this thing and just say, okay, let me take me completely out of it. If I'm not looking to get anything out of this for myself, how effective could this thing be for those people? Because, you know, when I really strip it all down, you know, if I can get people like yourself and like other folks I've had on this show, you know, 30 minutes, an hour and a half of exclusive marketing time to an audience, and nobody else talking to this audience but you, and you get to say whatever you want to say about your business, and then promote people coming to you, then, you know, I feel like I'm doing a service to the community on two sides there. And it costs me absolutely nothing to just create the platform. Same thing with this website I have in my head. You know, when I first started this, I was thinking, you know, what am I going to charge people to be in this business directory that will make it fair for me and fair for them and this and the other. And the further I go into it, the more I'm thinking is like, you know, it really won't cost me anything except, you know, the basic monthly fee to have the website open, just to have it there. If I can give away listings in this directory and give away airtime on this podcast, and it's really not costing me much of anything, you know, how much more can I serve the community? Because how many more people are going to say, yes, I want to be on your show. Yes, I want to be in your website, because it's basically free marketing. How many more businesses can I help going about that way? And that is what has been coming into my head of, you know, just give it away. Just keep building this thing and just give it away, because the more Black-owned businesses who can get seen and heard, the better off our community is going to be. How the quicker it's going to be able to grow. And I think that, and I'm just kind of rambling here, but it hadn't really been a dilemma. It's just been something I've been thinking about. And now you're talking about character, you know, to me that fits with the person I want to be. I want to be able to create stuff and give it away so that people can enrich themselves.
And see, the thing is, if that fits what you want to be, it's going to fit what you want to do. And see, God gives us wisdom, Jared. So He will help you in how to devise the proper plan. That's the most important thing right there. Like you said, people who are certainly in need of the advertising, who don't get certain platforms, such as myself, just for example, this is an excellent opportunity, you know, and I thank God for the opportunity, you know, just to share my story. And I'm sure that there are millions of people out there that feel the very same way. And see, because of e-commerce and all of that, we know when you develop a certain platform, there's going to be other opportunities presented for you. But see, that's what I was saying earlier, dear. That's a good example about people doing business with the Black community. They take advantage of it instead of helping. See, if you go in with the motivation to help, then the other part will come as far as how the money is going to be made from this. But that should be a byproduct. The first thing that has to happen is the motivation of it. Because what's going to be birthed from the motivation is going to be the primary objective that you're trying to achieve and how you're going to go about achieving it. And that makes all the difference in the world. If you build something on a proper foundation, here again, that's biblical, it's going to stand, Jerry. If you build something on the wrong foundation, it's not going to stand. It simply won't stand. That's why we see certain businesses has been around for years and years. And, that's the thing that makes money anyway, residual income. You make money, real money, by having something repetitiously over and over, over and over. That's long term. That's generational wealth being developed. See, most people just want to do this hit and quit stuff. They want to make a lot of money at one time. See, that's not going to happen. That's not how you develop wealth. A person can get rich. You can lose your riches overnight. It happens all the time. So that's very important. Very important. And I applaud you for that, man. Because that's the void I feel that's in our community. I feel like that's the void right there.
I see that too. And it's so frustrating. It's so frustrating to see how easy it is to get started and how hard we make it.
Mm-hmm.
I've talked to a few friends of mine recently who have either started a business or are thinking about starting a business, and the thing that holds a lot of people back is capital. And I understand that if you're getting into a business, it's going to require a certain amount of capital to get started. Like, I get that. But the thing that holds a lot of other people back is simply this idea that, I got to have money coming in. I can't give up my job. I was actually talking to a friend of mine the other day, and, I withhold all that personal information because it's his business. But, we were talking and he was saying, I'd love to jump full in with this business that I have because I love doing it and I could do it on the weekends. I could do this, that, and the other, but I got to have a job. I got to make sure that money's coming in. And so we got to talking about the numbers, and, I asked him, so he details vehicles, right? I asked him, what's the average you make for detailing a car? He said about $75, a little bit more, a little bit less. And then I asked him, what's the average time it takes you? He said about 200 or 2 hours. I'm like, okay, so let's say you work an 8-hour day. You do, 2 hours per car. So that's 4 cars a day, $75 average. That's $300 a day. If you work in a normal 20-day month, because you take the weekends out, and you making $300 a day for 20 days a month, that's $6,000 that you just made. Now, how does that compare to what you're making at your job in the daytime? And he was like, man, it's a lot more. Like, okay, so do you have to have this job that's costing you 9-10 hours a day every day of the week when you can work less and make a whole lot more if you just take that leap? You already got the platform. What's going to hold you back? And a lot of times it's just a matter of doing that math that gets people to see, oh, I could triple, quadruple, make 5, 6, 7 times the money that I'm making right now if I just devote the 40 hours that I'm putting towards this other job to paying myself. But we don't have those conversations as much as other communities do. It's like a revolutionary idea a lot of times, talking to, folks within our community of, you can do this for yourself. And it is. It's scary and it's frustrating to have to start fresh with that in 2017. That's still a fresh, new idea in the Black community.
That's absolutely right, Gerald. And the reason for that is because we have been brainwashed to believe that the best thing for us and the best thing for your family is just to work a job. You come to another man's job and work his job and make money for him. See, that's safe. And we've been conditioned to believe that. But like you said, there are other communities who teach their children from birth. Now look at the difference here. They teach them from birth not to be an employee, but to be an employer, to start business, to meet a need in that community and sell and make money. But primarily in our community, we teach our children to become employees.
Yep.
Tremendous difference.
Get a good job or work for the government. That still blows my mind in our community that, the ultimate job is a government job, even to this day. Somebody gets a job working for the state or working for the federal government, and that's just like, oh, you made it. That you don't have to worry about anything the rest of your life. And technically, especially with a federal job, that's kind of true. Once you get in there, it's really hard to get fired. But that also means that for the rest of your life, I mean, you have no ability to create anything because all your work belongs to the government. And that has never sat right with me. The idea that what we need to strive for is getting a good job with the government and you set for the rest of your life.
And look how it hinders the productivity of the individual. The person has nothing to strive for because it's already predetermined, how far they can go on those particular jobs also. Mm-hmm. So can you imagine going to a job every day knowing that this is all you can do? As far as achievement-wise, your money plateau is going to level out at a certain place. You can only make so much in this department, if you will. Mm-hmm. But when one has an entrepreneurial spirit, I mean, you can make as much money in 1 month than some people can make in a half a year.
Right.
It all depends on what you're doing. But I think it's the risk that most people don't want to take. So that takes a step of faith. At some point in time in all of our lives, to do something we've never done before, you're going to have to do something you've never done before. Mm-hmm. So we have to take a step of faith.
So talk to me. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I just love to be on the cutting edge of that. To me, that's exciting. I don't want to jeopardize my family or anything like that. And I kind of had to hold myself back in the past because I had, young children because we started having children at an early age. I got my wife pregnant in high school. Mm-hmm. So there were certain things that I had to do because of that. You have to take responsibility for your actions. But I always had that same entrepreneurial spirit. But because of the risk involved there, see, it wasn't only myself involved. It was my wife, and my girlfriend at that time, and also my child. Mm-hmm. So I had to take certain precautions. But it never, ever extinguished that fire that was in me. And I thank God for that. And I don't mind working for someone else. See, there's nothing wrong with working for someone else, establishing yourself. And, for financial reasons, and for medical reasons, or whatever the case may be. That's good. But always build your own. Always establish something for yourself because, see, that's something that is God-given. That's God-given. God is the one that puts that fire in us. And it's up to each of us whether or not we are going to let that light shine. That's a little Bible school thing. This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. To me, that's synonymous. This light that is in you, it's amazing how that light is going to come out. And I think so many people have covered that light, and they could be operating business and doing so many other things, Gerald. There are people, I look at a lot of people that are well educated and all of that, but I see that they don't use it for anything but just to do their job. To me, what a loss. People spend 10 years, 15 years, all of that in school, and you only using that education and stuff, nothing but for your job? Oh, my goodness. You should be creating systems, new jobs, all kinds of things. Well, at least that's the way I look at it.
Yeah.
That I see that a lot of people fail to live up to their full potential because they're trying to take, the safe path.
So it's interesting that you bring that up because the first thing that came to my mind, the next person that I'm going to be talking to, her name is Jamil. She started a line of hair care products for all different types of natural hair, whether it be, dreadlocks or natural curls or even beard, ointments and things that she has. But her background is, she started doing hair when she was a teenager, but she went to school for, I forget the name of it, but it's basically chemistry, biochemistry. She's basically a scientist, right? And that
Right.
is how she has approached life. And that is how she approached school. That's what she went to school, got her degrees for. And she took that education that she has in biochemistry and tied it with this passion that she had for making good hair care products. And she blended the two and created this, unique line of hair care products that is not just a bunch of different oils and things thrown together in a concoction that works, but she went through the whole scientific process of mixing and testing and getting levels right and comparing and seeing how this compared with that, and then putting it together and creating this line of product that is incredible. And that right there is exactly what I think you're talking about. Because, when I first talked to her, she said, I'm not a business person. I don't really consider myself to be an entrepreneur. I just knew I could do this and I could do that. And so I put them together and I created something new. And I'm like, Jamil, that's entrepreneurship.
Absolutely.
You're a business person.
That's great. That's great. And see, also, the other aspect that we was talking about is as far as meeting needs. See, she wanted to create a product that would be good for the individual's hair. We have the market today is flooded with all kinds of products. Some of them is worthless, Gerald.
Mm-hmm.
They're just doing it, like I said, just to take advantage of the community, of the people. But she wanted to put together a product that would benefit the people, that will make their scalps healthy, to make their hair healthy, the natural products and stuff that will help the people, not to hurt them. She wasn't in it just to make a profit, even though certainly there's profit in it, but she was in it to meet the needs of the people. I think that's tremendous, man.
So speaking on that, I want to get into you and your businesses, because there's several of them. So we talked about your background and your upbringing, but you're a pastor of a church. You've got janitorial service. You've got your 3-on-3 basketball league. You got multiple different projects that you've started, that you've got running, that are feeding your family. And I would love to showcase those and just kind of have you talk about how you got those started and how you're running them, how you're running these multiple projects still. And just I just want to hear more of that wisdom that you shared with me before, because you've been doing it a long time, and a lot of us who are just starting, there's a lot that I pulled out of it, but a lot of other young entrepreneurs could take away from the way that you have built your mini empire that you've got going on.
Okay, for me personally, I want to start with the janitorial business. Now, the janitorial business started, and this is definitely how God operates. Anything you do, God prepare you for it first. I was working as a janitorial supervisor at night. I was working a full-time job, and then this is when my kids were younger, to make ends meet and everything. I worked part-time doing, the janitorial work. And I worked for an individual, I'm not going to call the name of the company, that took an interest in me. And see, Gerald, that's one of the things, that we have to do with one another. Back in the day, it used to be apprenticeships, things like that. The older people, if they seen a young man or a young woman that was pretty sharp in doing something, that they would take an interest in them and try to help them. But see, we don't see that in the community too much now.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to say this guy didn't look like me. He was of another ethnicity, but he took an interest in me in the fact, obviously I was making money for him and all of that, and he saw that I had a zeal, that I really wanted to do some things. So what he did here, he had the big building projects. the skyscrapers and all of that. And I was supervising those buildings for him. He used to give me, whenever he had small projects come in, I used to go with him, and he used to go to evaluate the project. If the project was too small, he didn't want them. See, it wasn't even worth his while to fool with it, based on where he was at that particular time. So he gave me an opportunity to get those projects by doing what? By giving the individuals that contacted him a good word about me, that I would do a fine job and all of that. And that's actually how I got started, Jerry. It started my business. And some of those businesses that he recommended to me, I still have some of those projects, and they are small. Now, here again, I have to go back to a biblical principle. The Bible says, don't despise small beginnings. See, some people want to start too big, Gerald. You have to start where you are. See, you start by meeting the need. I had an immediate financial need, needed money, but I also wanted to do something on my own independently. So I was working for him, and yet I worked my own buildings and stuff on the side. When I got through working for him, then I used to go and clean my building. And, the little small projects I had, you only did them once or twice a week. So It wasn't a big problem. But that's actually how it started. And there was another friend of mine that was a supervisor working for this same company, and he and I incorporated the business together. And he is deceased now. And he and I, in our business plan, we did something that has stood the test of time. And here again, it was just something that is written. It was an agreement between he and I. He said that if something happened to him, well, that's the way we wrote it up in the business, that I would help take care of his family. If something happened to me, that he would help take care of my family. And it so happened that he had cancer, and George died. His name was George. He died as a result of that. And to this day, Jerry, I send his wife a check. Now, I'm going to show you how God operates. I send her a check every month. Now, there's no strings attached. She's even, written me a letter telling me, you don't have to do that, Pastor. You don't have to do any of that. But I do that because I keep my word to my partner. And I know he would have done the very same thing to me. Mm-hmm. That was written up in our business plan. So the reason why I said all that is that these things are bigger than us, Gerald. They are so much bigger. And if we only look at a business, just based upon just making a little money, then we haven't really grasped, what this is all about, because it's so much bigger than us. So I have been able to be a blessing to his wife now as a result not of the business. See, the business has been productive it's been almost 30 years.
Wow.
Years. It's been almost 30 years, Gerald, when we started that. And I'm saying that we're still making money on some of those same buildings. Now, look how God works. So that's why a person cannot despise a small beginning. But the issue is, are you consistent? Are you willing to stick to it? I think if we're willing to do that, see, we can get the job done. That's what's needed in our community. And that's why I applaud this young lady that you're talking about, and so many others. You start where you are. You build your niche, and you stick to it. And see, we definitely can build a community, a wealthy community, a vibrant community, a community that loves one another. See, that's the most important thing. See, it's one thing I found out. Love is more important than wealth. It's more important.
That's the truth.
If a person has love, then I assure you wealth is going to be all around. I guarantee. But you can own all sorts of material things and all that, and you don't have love and stuff, man. I mean, that stuff is not profiting you anything. It's not worth anything. That's why a lot of people die miserable deaths with a lot of money. Mm-hmm. Having money is just not enough. A lot of money. But we need to have money, and we need to know what to do with it. And that's why we have to reinvest in our communities. You have to reinvest in people. A great investment you can make, and I spoke on this a little bit earlier, hit on it, is to make investments, to reinvest rather back in people.
And so with that, you've got your church that you pastor, and then you've got your businesses that you run. And I'm curious to know your insights on that, on how do we do that? How do we reclaim the wealth of our community? Because, like you were saying at the very beginning, how the grandparents used to be the foundation of the family. I know a lot of our families have lost that. My family hasn't. My family is still built on, the grandparents and even great grandparents that I have that are still living are the rock. They're the foundation that whenever we have some type of reunion, it's usually centered around them and their locations. And our community used to be more like that. We had entire Black communities that literally it was a village raising a child. And it wasn't because it took a village to do it. It's just that we were all a village anyway. So the village was going to raise them. I know, talking about my dad, which you and my dad had a history working together. And, but I remember stories of him growing up, in Granite Mountain down in, down the southern part of Little Rock. And that whole neighborhood to this day, everybody he grew up with, they are still like brothers and sisters. I mean, it was that exact same thing where you go out when the day starts and you don't really come home until it's nighttime. And in between, everybody in that neighborhood is watching out for everybody else. And if anything happened, that news was going to make it home before you made it home. And it was going to make sure that, your parents knew about it and things got taken care of. It was a community, and there wasn't anybody that was like, don't say that to my kid. Don't talk to my kid. And there wasn't any parents who, who had any problems saying, correcting you where you were, because it was all out of love. And now we don't have those loving communities anymore. And I personally, I don't know how we get back there. What ideas do you have, or what ways do you use, your pastorship and your businesses to try to, spark that?
That's a great question, Gerald. To me, like I said, it's always boiled down to simplicity. You said earlier, a lot of times, you were speaking on the issue of starting business stuff, that we overcomplicate things. And I think that's exactly what happens. I think it's very simple. What we need to get back to is the foundational, basic principles of the family. See, it starts with the family. See, God created the family before he created the church. Family first. See, there can be no family. There is no procreation, unless there's not going to be any establishment of any family, there can be no churches unless there's family. So it starts with that. We have to plant seeds in our own families. We have to instill these things in our own children. And if everyone did that, then we could literally change a generation overnight, Gerald. We could do it. And it all starts with their thinking. We must teach our own children. See, part of the reason why these things have gotten out of hand is because we have allowed the world to teach our children instead of parents teaching their own children. Now, I'm not saying you got to start your own school and all that. There's a lot of options today, though. Homeschool. We homeschool our children. Our last two children, originally my children went to public school. My oldest son graduated from public school. But my next two children, they graduated from homeschooling. So, in other words, you can only do what you know at a given time and the options you have available. So that's what we did as it relates to our first son. But then more opportunities avail themselves to us, and you take advantage of those opportunities. See, here again, it all comes from what's ingrained in you, what's been put in you. And I always wanted to have my own, and I always wanted to obviously give my children the best options that they could have. And the best thing I could do for my children is to take control of the education that they was getting.
Mm-hmm.
It's what's going into the most valuable asset, their minds. Man, if we can get a hold on that, Gerald, then, see, we can change things. See, because the media, all these marketing companies, the marketing that is done in our community is detrimental to us. It is no positive marketing for our community. It is all negative. For other communities, it's all positive. So these things is instilled in the children.
Right.
So we have to set the pace for our children.
Even the things, and you know what? That's even the things that are targeted at us. Because there's marketing out there about us to other communities, and that's negative. But even the things that are marketed supposedly to us appeal to the worst parts of us. Absolutely. Because it's not written by us. That's another thing. There's so much more that I'm noticing these days when I turn on a TV or go on the internet. But you're absolutely right. Even when they're talking to us, they try to appeal to, I guess, the worst stereotypes of us, because you can always tell the difference between a black-owned business and a black-targeted business. Absolutely.
Tremendous difference. And see, that's why the platform you are establishing is so important. It is so important. Because, see, not only do you have a different motivation, where it's coming from, Gerald, is totally different. And what I mean by where it's coming from, I'm talking about the reasoning for you doing this is coming from a whole different place. And see, when people is only using you, your organization or your community, of your entity or whatever it is, just to make money, like they have done our community, mm-hmm. then obviously that's not coming from a very good place. It's all about just trying to make revenue off of us. And they don't care at whose cost. But see, the platform you're setting up is one whereby the byproduct of it is a positive influence on our community as a whole. Not only for the business that you are showcasing, but also for the recipients of the ones who's hearing these broadcasts. Mm-hmm. And this is being planted for years and years. Generation and generation. See, you don't know who's going to hear this, Jerry. You don't know what predicament those people are going to be in. It could be young men in prison or whatever. That this very well could be the thing that light the torch for them, that change the course of their life.
And I really hope it is. And I know, like, sometimes I have these grandiose ideas of the reach that anything could have. That's why I got so excited about this podcast when I kind of came up with the idea, saw nobody else had it going, because, I have always enjoyed the idea of having an impact on somebody that I don't know anything about. And you know how it is. I mean, you've been on this earth a whole lot longer than me, and I know that it happens because I've had it happen to me where, you might make an off comment to somebody 20 years ago. And some 20 years later, you walking down the street or you walking in the mall or you something, and this person sees you, comes running up to you and tells you this whole story about how that one thing that you didn't even think about led them on a path to something incredible. And that always gets me. Every time something like that happens in my life, it makes me want to go out and reach somebody else and maybe make a difference in their life too, because like those are the things that you live for, is to know that something you did changed somebody's life, because not everybody gets to experience that.
I'm glad you said that, Gerald. This will give me an opportunity to say this, and obviously none of this is planned, but see, that's the same impact that your dad had, the very same impact. See, you never know how you impact the people. If you don't mind me sharing.
I don't mind.
When I first moved here to Little Rock, and see, we don't know how, we don't know when someone is going to have impact on our life, but it all boils down to, once again, the need of the individuals. Gerald, your father, he was the manager of a particular McDonald's. My wife worked there first, part-time. And like I said, I was working 2 and 3 jobs trying to make ends meet. And I went there, and Gerald hired me because I was old and everything as a closer. So he saw, once again, the opportunity to help someone who was in need of help. And it wasn't that see, the person is begging or anything like that. But he came in, I'll never forget it. I came in, rather, to be interviewed. And Gerald, it was real hectic. It was real busy. I don't know if he was short of some of his assistant managers or what. But he told me to go into the room, I'll never forget. And, you had to go over these videotapes during that time. The manager's supposed to, take you through these tapes and all this. That was part of their training and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And Gerald, he took me to the room and he put the tape in and stuff. He said, "Now, I'm busy. I'll be back." So it was an opportunity for me to show him my initiative. So Gerald, he stayed gone, So I took upon myself that when I finished one tape, I got those. And when to make a long story short, it was several different tapes. I went through the tape, and when Gerald came back, he said, "I see that you went through the tape." He said, "That's what I'm looking for." He said, "I'm looking for someone that would take the initiative." He said, "You were hired." That's what he did. Now, all I'm saying, all this to say this: he gave me the opportunity. See, God put you in certain places where we're able, Gerald, to help other people. Mm-hmm. And see, it's not that we just giving handouts, but you are giving people opportunity. And that's what love does. Love covers. The Bible says love covers multitudes of faults. So if we see that there's a need that can be met, and we see a person is obviously trying to get certain needs met, then we who are in certain positions, we many times have the opportunity to give that person a chance that they never had. Or a lot of times it's even life and death. It's certain situations that serious that we actually hold life and death in our hands to certain individuals. And see, if the person don't have the right motivation, see, Gerald had the right motivation. He was trying to help, as many people as he possibly could. Now, obviously, he had to manage. He had responsibility to manage that store, and he needed to get good people in there. And he was looking for that. But he was looking at the initiative of the individual and see what he saw in myself and stuff. And from that day forward, he didn't have to micromanage me or anything like that, and he knew that. In other words, he had my back, and I had his. Whatever he needed for me to do or whatever, he knew I was going to take care of it. See, that means a lot. Now, I know I'm rambling a little bit with that, but I want to share that. I think you need to know that about your dad.
I appreciate that. I haven't spent a whole lot of time on this show talking about him, but that story fits who he is because he was it's so hard to explain him because, he and I, we didn't get along for a long time while I was a teenager. It was because I was really hard headed and, I was always a good kid, but I always wanted to do things my own way. Right. And he had a way in his head of how things should be done. And I had a way in my head of this is how I'm going to do it. And so we would butt heads. But like any other teenager, I idolized my dad and I paid attention to everything that he did that he didn't think I was paying attention to. Everything from, sitting, man, I remember being 12, 13 years old. It's funny now, but Saturday mornings, I would pretend to sleep in because I was the only child and I knew my mama would protect me. And I would just pretend to just be asleep because I knew if I got up and got out of my room, my dad was going to make me go outside with him and do the yard and rake leaves and do stuff. And I was like, well, if I don't wake up, then I don't have to go do that work. But every Saturday he was outside raking that yard or mowing the grass or washing the cars. Like he always, even though he worked all those crazy, fast food hours, he always took care of home. And then outside of home, we would leave on the weekends, on a Saturday, Sunday, and we would make the rounds. And this man was all around Little Rock. I mean, we would go to house to house to house to house to house, and some of it was just visiting with friends. Some of it was going to help somebody out with something, this, that, and the other. But I remember growing up, almost all the time I spent with my dad, we was in the truck going here or going there. And a lot of times it was helping somebody. And I didn't even think about it at the time. But that's just who he was. He wanted to take care of people. And I know, I can't even say I think, I know that's a lot of where I got my desire to do that from, is kind of knowing that. And that's what I saw men do. You look around and see who needs help, and then you figure out a way to help them.
Absolutely. And that's the thing that our community has always done, Jerry. Always have. We always have helped one another. Contrary now to what the world is saying, that you hear this old thing about, black people are like crabs, they pull each other down and all that. That is not true. That has been planted by the enemy to brainwash us and to divide us. That's all that is. There is no way, Gerald, we could have made it if we didn't help one another.
Mm-hmm.
And all a person's got to do is just think. When the whole society is against you, how in the world could we have made it if it wasn't for each other? And of course, the Lord. People always want to say, it was because of the Lord, but I want to make sure it's understood it was also because of each other.
Mm-hmm.
No other way we could have made it. To survive what we have gone through as a race of people and to come out standing, there's no way in the world we could have made it if it hadn't been for the support of each other.
And that actually also goes to, I think when we talked before, I told you about my two favorite scripture, or my favorite scripture that kind of is the foundation of my belief system. When the Pharisees were testing Jesus, and they tried to trip him up and told him to tell him what's the greatest commandment. And Jesus told him, love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your mind and all your soul. And then the second is like the first, love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and the prophets hang on these two. And that's exactly what you're saying. It's a community is going to stand when it puts God first, and then it treats brothers and sisters as brothers and sisters. And I know that's what my family has always done. Absolutely. Within our family and also within the community. And I also see whenever the chips are down, even today, and I can't lie, I get really frustrated, and I fall into believing a lot of those things that you were just saying about us not taking care of each other and pulling each other back and holding each other down. But, whenever the chips are down, we do come together. My frustration is that we don't come together when the chips are up. When the hand is being dealt and everything is going our way, we tend to scatter, and everybody just kind of tries to take their little piece and go to their corner, and instead of saying, okay, how do we keep progressing forward? That's the part I'm trying to wrap my head around. And I might just be missing something. It might be there and I'm just not seeing it.
No, I think you are seeing correctly. And there's a reason for that, Jerry. And the reason for that is because we have never gotten to that stage before. We're talking about as a community, as a race of people. See, we always have dealt with that lateral stage, the undering. So we always have worked in accordance in trying to support each other in that manner. But we hadn't learned how to do it as being, at a certain level up here, and logistically providing those support systems for each other. And see, I think this is what your platform provides. See, that's the ingenious of the whole thing. See, I actually believe that this is exactly what your platform provides for the community. It is all about meeting the need, and that's where it started from.
I hope so. I hope that's what it's going to be, because I intend for all this to be a positive outlet. I don't want to use it to complain about a politician. I don't want to use it to complain about this, or it is all about, hey, bring what you have, what you're doing out in the community over here, and we're going to tell everybody about it. That's what I want this platform to do, so that anything happening in the Black community, if you want to get it out to a big audience, just bring it to me, because it don't cost me nothing to get it to the audience. Just like you said, humble beginnings. The audience is small right now, but it's growing. But once this audience is growing, anybody just, if they got it and they want to share it, bring it here. We'll blast it out to the community and we'll help it grow. That's what I want this to be, because, I see it. I've seen it in my lifetime. All the changes that have happened in our community. They wouldn't let us go to college, and then we created our own colleges, and then we started having Black professionals. But then we still were having issues with Black professionals and people getting getting degrees. And over the last 30 years, those numbers have skyrocketed. And now we're seeing all these Black professionals with these higher level degrees that are out here, succeeding in society, to where now it's just become commonplace. And the youngsters and the kids that are growing up behind my generation, they're coming out with an expectation. You're going to get a bachelor's degree. You're going to get a master's degree. And we're seeing so many more higher educated Black people. It's becoming the standard. Our image out in the world, even though the marketing and the media and everything still tries to show the worst of our community, we all have social media now. We all have outlets to be able to show the great things that Black people are doing, and they can't keep us out of that limelight anymore. And so even the image of what it means to be Black and successful and proud to be Black is changing, and it's getting noticed, and I can see us coming to this crest where, Black is beautiful, Black is smart, Black is strong. And now we need to get to a point where beautiful, Black, strong people need to come together and start turning all of those fingers into one big, powerful fist. I want to be a part of that part of the movement. That I see that coming, and I want to be right there in the center of it with this.
So what I'm hearing is that we have to adapt new lifestyle changes. We got to adapt to new lifestyle changes. So that has to come from, the teaching. It's important, I believe, for people to understand that you don't just teach in a environment, the traditional school system and stuff, the teacher, the students sitting at a desk and all that. That's one way. But it's so important that we learn these vital lessons of life. Someone has to teach them. Someone has to tell the stories. The children of Israel, when they came out of Israel, God told them as they sat at the campfires. Now, he didn't say you start, your Hebrew school and all that, even though they do have Hebrew schools today. Well, what God told them to do, see, it's the same thing. He told them to teach them. He said, you tell them how you made it over. Don't tell them you did it yourself. You tell them that it was God. See, that's teaching your children. You're passing it on. That's the very same thing, Gerald, I believe we must do in our community. We must pass on, certain knowledge, that our young people may be knowledgeable of our past. And we're talking about successes and failures. I think also one of the problems is a lot of people don't want to talk about their failures. If you're going to be successful at anything, then obviously you must have failed at some point in time.
Oh yeah, you got to.
That's right.
3, 4, 5 times before you really get it big, because
yes, sir.
There's so much stuff to learn. There's no way you can get it the first time out.
That's right. So that's why we must communicate about our failures also. And I know parents are kind of bad at this. They don't want to tell their children about their mishaps, but that happens in life. And I think it's good for their learning that they know that. And I think it will help them in not making the same mistake.
Mm-hmm.
But when one, go about saying that it's like, I lived a perfect life, I never made a mistake and all that, it's going to fall pretty hard, if a person find out or see you at a fault or, whatever in certain predicaments. And instead of just telling people, that we all have missed it at some point in time.
Mm-hmm.
It may be something you done, said, or whatever. That's just all part of it. So we got to change our lifestyle so many times. See, we need to do that as it relates to family finances, the entrepreneurship part. If we're not teaching our children to become business owners, to become entrepreneurs, then we're teaching them. We're either teaching them to do that or we're teaching them to be an employee.
Mm-hmm.
That's all there is to it. So I think we need jobs already set up. We can employ our own children. They don't have to go work for someone else. They don't have to be exposed to certain things.
Now, hold on 1 second for me. Can you go back and say that again? Because my internet cut out for a second, and I missed that part where you were saying you think we need to do something, and then it went blank for a little bit.
Okay. The idea that I was speaking on was concerning lifestyle change, and I think that we need to go back in many cases, and we need to adapt to a new way of doing some things, as far as telling our children that we have made mistakes. See, if you're going to build businesses and you're going to teach your children to be entrepreneurs, then we must tell them now your first endeavor may not be successful,
mm-hmm.
or your second, or your third, but they are consistent. If you are consistent, that you definitely will get the job done, that they can build and can establish something. Now, it's not that all businesses don't make some money, and I really think that this has been to our detriment also. There are many businesses that make money, but they don't make large amounts of money. And I think a lot of people, the way they have been primed in our world today, is that if you're not making a fortune almost, if you're not making hundreds of thousands of dollars and all that, then you're a failure. That's not true. If you have several businesses and you are making hundreds of dollars, for example, we're talking about thousands. If you have several businesses and you're making thousands of dollars now, we're talking about $10,000 or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
See, that adds up. But the mentality is, and I think that we get our eye because of the dissemination that has taken place. See, we want to be like the Fortune 500 companies, the Microsofts or the Amazons or whatever. But don't you understand, those businesses had to start somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
It takes time. And that's what we must do, and that's what we have to instill in our children. Start where you are. If we can instill that in our children, in our communities right now, if they can start right now, as young people, by the time they get my age, Gerald, you will see the whole paradigm of things has changed in our communities. Our communities will not be last, and the Bible says that the first shall be last and the last shall be first. Our community will be the head instead of the tail if we would do this. The other communities instill these things in their children. But the survival skills that we have developed as a community, and the stick-to-itness and the endurance, the trials and the perseverance and all the things that we have gone through, if we would instill these things in our children, I'm telling you, man, they would be something to be reckoned with.
I was just about to say that because, how do I say this? The fact that we have to work twice as hard as everybody else in order to just tread water and be average puts us in a situation where when we do have those breaks where we have an opportunity to shine, we end up just outpacing everybody because of what you said. Our endurance, our drive is born out of a need to survive. It's not born out of, pride of your parents, or, if you're not number one, then, the neighborhood is going to think less of us or anything like that. It's literally out of, if you do not, do twice as good as everybody else, which goes into everything. If you can't go out in the community with your friends and be twice as respectful to everybody that you interact with, then you might end up getting arrested. The other kids that you with, if you're in mixed company, they can say and do whatever they want. Nothing's going to happen to them. But you have to be on your P's and Q's all the time. In the classroom, you have to have your eyes on that paper and on the board and taking those notes. If you're, on the sports field, you have to make sure that if there's somebody who's in front of you every day, you're trying to catch them and pass them. Because if you don't, the very first time that you slip up might be the only chance that you get. And we're drilled in with that. I mean, I know I grew up in what I would consider to be a privileged situation. Neither of my parents got a college degree, but they put me in a private school because, they worked hard to make sure I was there and had that. But, even in that, it was constantly reminded of me that I only had one chance to do right. Because as soon as every time I did something that was just a little bit wrong, it was blatant, plain as day. If me and another boy got into a argument or a fight or something, he'd get a referral and I'd get detention, or he'd get detention and I'd get suspended for the exact same thing. And it was just blatant. It wasn't even like we're going to try to justify it by saying this, that, and the other. They literally would just be like, yeah, we're going to punish you harder. And because we grow up in that, every time we have a chance to shine, that's why you look at, look at tennis, right? You look at a sport like tennis, we are underrepresented in that sport as far as the number of black people playing the game, and yet the best in the world are black. You look at golf, way underrepresented of folks, playing that sport. But some of the greatest golfers, Tiger Woods and, Vijay Singh, who I know he's from Fiji, but still, some of the greatest golfers in the world are some of the black faces that make it into that. And you look at the sports that we dominate, obviously, football, basketball, things like that. But in whatever arena we get into that is typically dominated by another group, we tend to end up rising to the very top of it because our work ethic is just that much higher. Our drive to succeed is just that much more. And it's almost like we can't afford to have distractions. And I was thinking about that, and what you were saying is that if we applied that to running and owning businesses, we would be completely unstoppable.
Yes, sir. No doubt about it. That's interesting. We talked a little bit, Gerald, about a name. You are Gerald Jones.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's Brandon. We did talk about Brandon last time.
Your name means something. And see, I want to tie that in from this aspect. See, in the community back in the day, there was a sense of pride, Gerald. When one came out of the community and excelled at something, oh, man, that made everyone in the community proud. Man, Gerald going to school, or, he's in private school or whatever. There was a sense of pride in the whole community. But now, instead of that pride being there in our communities, there seems to be a sense of, covetousness, about it. And that has happened because of the brainwashing that has been done on our community. Instead of us being happy for each other, we hit on this a little bit earlier. Enthused about someone being successful in an endeavor. We just speaking in general tend to talk down about it and all of that. But the reason, we have to understand that everything is done, there's a reason now. The reason for it primarily is because of the brainwashing that has taken place in our community. And that's why I said the most important thing that we can do and it goes back to the question. I know this has been a long way around. You asked me how, that I think that the business, the church, or whatever, how we best can answer, these, what's the solution? I think is each one of us, once again, educated our own children and also the children in our periphery.
Mm-hmm.
We have to be willing to reach out to more than our own. And see, that's the thing that was prevalent in our community earlier. They, like you said, everyone, it's just that premise of the village. Like you said, and I'm glad you said that. People say today it takes a village. It does not take a village, but the village was there for the support. No, the parents was the one. You best believe that was teaching their children, and the children was under their tutelage, but they also had the support of the community. And I think we need to understand that today. We don't need the community to raise our children. We need the community to help support our children.
Mm-hmm.
Big difference.
That is a huge difference, because I think that is because every kid, every person, they are going to learn their values. They're going to learn the most from their household.
Absolutely.
But at a certain age, they're going to leave that household and go out into the community. And there's just so much that your parents can do for you.
That's right.
People have to give you breaks. People have to be looking to say, like you said, the gentleman that you were working with, janitorial stuff, somebody has to, out in the community, has to look and say, I'm going to give this person a leg up. I'm going to give them something. I'm going to give them an opportunity to show what they can do. And then we take it from there. But that's what we don't, I'm about to throw my pen right now because I'm about to get all hot and bothered. But that's what we lost. When we lost our businesses that we used to have, we aren't in a position to give our people an opportunity anymore. We got to hope that we get it from somebody in a different community with a good heart, where we used to be in a position when we own these businesses where we could be the one to say, I'm going to give you a job and I'm going to teach you everything I know so that someday you can own your own. We don't even have the position to be able to do that anymore. I mean, we are starting so much from scratch right now. And that is, again, that's another part of what I want to do here is we have to get back to the point where we are in a position to decide who gets a hand up in our community because we got to be able to support each other. We just don't have the tools to do it right now.
Well, I think that's absolutely right. And see, here again, sometimes, we can't see, the tree for the forest. I really believe that it seems so enormous, the problem, but it's really not. I think it started with, just like anything, one step at a time, one child at a time, one opportunity at a time. And I'm glad you said that. Now, that's interesting because what he did was, Gerald, that's a great point you just made. The gentleman, he was giving me an opportunity, basically, to start my own business. He wasn't asking them to give me a job. And I think that's very important that we make the distinction here. See, when we're working for someone else, the best we can do is ask our employer to hire our child or whatever. But it is still the same restrictions being put on them that's put on you. You can't pass down another man's job to your children, but you down yours. If you own your business, you can pass that down. Now, that's generational wealth. You pass that down to your children. But you can't do that with someone else's job. So what he was doing, he was actually giving me an opportunity to start my own. And like you said, that's a hand up. And that's what we need to stop doing. See, that's why government assistance and all that stuff does not work there. We need to stop giving people handouts. See, handouts are given for control.
Mm-hmm. Yes, they are.
Out to control mass numbers of people. But when you really want to help someone, you give them an opportunity. So that's a handout to be successful on their own, to be successful on their own, to build their own, to provide for themselves. Now, that's really success. And that's what's needed so desperately. So in order to do that, like I said, we're going to have to adapt to some lifestyle changes, man. Mm-hmm. It's going to have to be. we're going to have to cut off this self-gratification. In other words, delayed gratification is the key. Now we live in a time where it's me, 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 me. Everybody wants everything right now. That's the mentality we have. It's the entitlement mindset that most people have now. Everyone thinks they are entitled. No, you're not. So we're going to have to delay some things as far as gratification is concerned to have success. And see, that starts with sacrificing and planting the seed in these children and other business-minded people, entrepreneurs, or people who don't even consider themselves entrepreneurs, just like you spoke about this young lady, but people who have the fire, who have the desire to do something. Those are the people who need a hand up. Let's give them opportunity. And see, you don't have to provide hundreds of thousands of dollars and all that. No, you start where you are. If a person truly have a desire to start a business, do a business, I do not believe that a person should borrow money to start a business. As a matter of fact, I know it's anti-biblical because the Bible teaches us that a borrower becomes subservient to the lender. You're putting yourself in the same predicament as you working in a job for someone. Now, if you're going to expand your business, now we know it takes more capital to do certain things, but you also have the collateral. See, I think a person needs to wait till they get certain collateral to do certain things. So in that particular case, you have the asset there already. It's just not liquid. You just borrowing against what you own.
Okay.
That's a whole different concept.
Okay. I understand. Okay. So let me try to rephrase this to make sure I understand what you're saying. And not to reiterate, but for me to make sure I'm getting what you're saying here. If you borrow money in order to start a business, you've got nothing in your hand already. You've got nothing created that is of value.
Absolutely.
And so the money that you use to create this value is not yours. So therefore, the thing at that point isn't yours. And it won't be until and unless that thing has created enough money for you to pay that back. But all that time, you are working for somebody else on something that they own. But if you already own the business and it already has value and it's creating value for you and your family, and then you go to somebody else and say, I need to grow faster or bigger, let me borrow against this thing that I already own, then that is a different concept because your ownership is already there. The value is already there. You're basically leveraging something that you own as opposed to somebody else leveraging you in the other situation. Is that basically what?
I think that's primarily right. Absolutely. You know Mr. Johnson that started Jet Magazine?
Bob Johnson? Is that the name of that person? Okay.
Back in the day. Now, his life story is, it talks about that Mr. Johnson, that here again, I just look at the dynamics, Gerald. His parents believed in him. His parents raised him. They know that they had established certain norms and standards in him. They believed in him. His parents put their house up as collateral for Mr. Johnson to borrow $500 to start Johnson Enterprise. And look at the results of it.
Wow.
Yes, sir.
That's a lot of faith.
That's a lot of faith. Look at the investment there. That they was willing to invest in their own son. Man, that's awesome.
Now he's a billionaire, is he not?
Well, he certainly was a multi-millionaire, when he died and stuff. His daughter still runs, part of the company. They sold, some of it, but they still own the Essence, magazine and stuff.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. See, here again, and I don't want to chase rabbits, but you have to change with the needs of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Those magazines and papers during that particular time, that was a tremendous need, especially for our community, because we wasn't getting certain information, especially by people like us.
Right.
And he provided that. So that's why he was so successful at that time. But see, doing progress, the technology advances and all of that, you have to make some changes, and they wasn't so much on the forefront willing to make changes. And I think they was a little bit late in making some adjustments. As a result of that, some time passed them by. See, that's why we have to be constantly learning, engaging ourselves, knowing what's going on, be abreast to what is happening. That is so important. See, that's why the church is ill-effective, Gerald. It's because the church really don't know what's going on. They don't know what's happening in their own communities.
I've seen that. I've seen that in the past, yes.
Yes, sir. They are sitting behind those four walls, I'm going to say it like that, and they are content with that, They think that people, that's the way that, it's been passed down to them. That's the way they think it should be. But we're living in a different time. When I say a different time, I'm talking about a different age as it relates to the technology. We are not taking advantage of the opportunities that we have. We must be progressive when it comes to these things. We have to be open to them. That's why if the churches would allow their young people to start and operate in certain ministries, I believe this now, and I guess I'm getting to the point now where I'm trying to answer for the church.
Mm-hmm.
If we would allow our young people to engage in certain activities as far as the technology, we could reach out to enormous amount of people. But most churches don't even want to engage in any technology hardly, or they'll keep it to the minimum. Now they'll do the music and all that. They're good at that. Here again, that's tradition, supposedly for us as black people. Now that's something I do want to point on. See, to me, I was never interested in music per se, because everything they said most black people should do, I didn't want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
If they said we all danced and did all that kind of stuff, I didn't want to be involved in it. I never had much interest in that. I always wanted to be different. I didn't want to be like everyone else. I wanted to be me. I wanted to be the best that I could be in whatever I could do. Now, getting back to this point, though, the church is not allowing our young people to engage in certain activities. I know personally of some churches where they would tell you to cut your phones off. You can't have your phones on and all that. Now, I'm not saying that the phone shouldn't be on silent, but people got apps and stuff, Bible apps and stuff, that they use on their phones.
Yep.
I had to come to grips with this myself, Jerry. Mm-hmm. I had to deal with this. I used to say that too. Cut your phones off if it's not Jesus calling,
I remember hearing that a couple times in church.
Yeah, at that time I thought I was speaking with some wisdom, but it was not.
Mm-hmm.
That was traditional thinking. And we have to get out of these boxes. We have to get ourselves out of the box as far as our families are concerned, our businesses are concerned, our churches. We need to get out the box. And we need to establish our own systems. See, that's one of the problems. The systems that we are operating in, Gerald, are systems that's been set up by the world. The system that's been set up by people who have set up these systems to control us.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to establish our own system. In other words, what's best for us? It's very simple. So when we talk about how to reactivate our communities or to establish our communities in a positive way, it is simply going back and establishing those things that has been successful in the past and adapting to the things that will be successful in the future. Okay. We know we're going to have to balance it with a little of both. See, there's some things we need to bring from the past, but we don't need to bring everything now. There's also some things that we need to institute based on where we are right now in society and as far as the technology and things are concerned. I think that if we do that, man, we got a winner. I'll tell you that. Because our young people, they are accustomed to the technology now. They know more about the technology than the average older person.
Yeah, because, we're born into it. And
exactly.
there's one thing I saw, so I'm gonna hit this real quick. But the one thing I noticed a while back, I was looking in Facebook, and there's a whole section that you can go into there that's like live videos, and it'll show you a map of the world, and it'll show you all the Facebook live videos that are happening around the world right then. And you can click on any one of them and pull up the video and watch. And I remember doing that on a Sunday morning and seeing live videos coming from different churches, not just across the country, but across the world. You could literally pop open a video live right there on your computer screen of a church service happening in Brazil or in Malaysia or somewhere like that. And I mean, just complete live service happening or anywhere in the States. And I was like, wow, this is amazing that, churches are coming along and saying, this technology is here for us to reach people around the world. What does it take for us to just start a video, tie it into a social media platform, and we put our service out there live for anybody to get to it? I think that's a really cool use of technology that I've seen.
It certainly is. And, the premise is sheep beget sheep. Now, you just think, if you had a platform like that set up in your church, whether, it was a live broadcast or whatever the case may be, or it could be post-service activities, and your young people was the announcers, that they were the ones that was navigating this, that they was reaching out to other young people over the world, telling them about what they heard, their opinion of what the message was, and all of that. Man, it is just so many things, Gerald, that we can do.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's a great idea. So let me ask you this question, because and this is I'm seeking advice now. I have been considering, actually not just considering, I really want to do this, but I've been trying to consider the way to do it. So my business and my background is in training. I'm certified professional in learning and performance. I've been doing training for the last 7 years of my life. It's what I do. I do it really well. And I have been trying to think about how to put together an entrepreneurship curriculum / mentorship program for young people. And I'm thinking, middle school age is where I would want to start with that. But I'm seeking. I'd like to know your opinion on, would that be, if I was to build that out, would that be something that would be more effective to pilot and test out in a church, or try to connect with a school system and see if I could get students in a school system to first pilot and check that out? Because I know that either one would be difficult, but I'd like to know your opinion on that. Where would that be most effective to get started?
Okay, I think I understand the question, but I do want to make this point, and this is very important. When we talk about the church is people. Okay, those same people in the church is families. Those same families are in the school.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? So what we need to do, and see, I think that this is the premise of all businesses also, as far as marketing is concerned. I think that's marketing 101. See, in any business endeavor, you got to have a target. So who is your target group? You said between the age of middle school, right?
Middle school, because I think high school is too late. In elementary school, there may be some basic principles that you could get, but for actually doing like entrepreneurial projects, I really think middle school is the age group that I would want to target.
Okay, I understand, but see, I think that it has to be initiated at an earlier age. The earlier, the better. I think it has to be progressive. See, it's got to be done in stages. See, it needs to be introduced when they're young. See, the younger the children are, the better it is to introduce them to a new concept, because they are like sponges. They will get it, man, I'm telling you. And as they progress, obviously your concept has progression. Then they go to the next step as far as they did the intermediate stuff, at first. Now they are more advanced. they're going to the advanced stage where it becomes more practical, where they are applying these things. See, that again, Gerald, is we reestablishing or establishing our own system. Now, your expertise is in training. So the thing is going to be for you to come up. God to give you the wisdom to come up. You're going to have to tweak it until it fits. You will know exactly when it's exactly what you want. But see, I think that we need to continuously test at all times. I mean, I do that all the time in my business model and also in the church. I'm going to test certain things. In other words, when God puts something on my heart, see, it may not be agreeable to everyone in the church. And see, that's the thing about leadership, the person who has vision for certain things. If God gives you your vision, he gives me mine. I don't have to get approval from everyone to step out in faith with what God gives me. That's for me. See, the Bible teaches what God has for you is for you, and what he got for me is for me. So it's up to me to step out in faith. So I come up, and I don't necessarily call them pilot programs or anything. I just call it, a lesson plan or whatever that I developed, because mine is primitive. That's what I consider just a lesson plan, a biblical lesson plan or whatever. But the issue is, what kind of lesson plan? I deal with finances. As a matter of fact, we dealt with something today. I have these flashcards that I use for our younger people, where they can learn certain business terminology. They need to know what investment means. They need to know what a consumer is. See, they just need to know these primary things. And where you start, the younger they are, the better. See, I'm going to tell you right now, for a middle school kid is just not learning what a consumer is, what an investor is, and all of that, they are way behind.
Okay.
Now, of course, we start where they are, but they are behind. But if they are in the sixth grade, I had a young lady today, she was in the sixth grade, and one of the young ladies was, one was 6 years old, and another one, she was 10 years old. Okay, obviously the 10-year-old should be more advanced than the 6-year-old, and she was. So that's operating on your measure. The 10-year-old had more information, and her family had done a very good job in instilling these things in her. She had learned some things. But the 6-year-old, she didn't obviously know as much, but you could see that she hadn't been worked with, about these things like the 10-year-old. But she did know some things. And I made her understand, or I reassured her, because everyone wants to be like everybody else. But you have to operate on your own measure. I had to reassure her that she was intelligent, she was a smart young lady, and she was on point for her age. And the 10-year-old was the same way. And see, I'm saying all that to say this. We have to deal with whoever the category of individuals we want to deal with. I don't care if they're children or whatever, but they all need the same thing until they come to that point of learning and is ready to advance or move on to the next step. Because there's even adults, Gerald, who don't know. You don't have to be a child. So what you're talking about implementing, see, it's just meeting the need. The information needs to be disseminated to everyone.
Right.
But obviously, you got to start with certain target groups.
And that's how I've looked at, for this podcast, I feel like the people who are going to engage are the folks who already know and are motivated and may already have their own business. And there's going to be a lot of the adult population who just will see this, and because it's never been a part of their life, they're like, that's not for me. And I have to accept that that's fine, because if I try to put all of my effort into reaching every black person and get them to start thinking ownership and things like that, it's going to be a lot of energy focused on a bunch of people who are, it's almost like, and this is something I experienced growing up in the church. It's almost like going out into the community and just preaching at that drug addict to try to force them, to change their life. It's just, you got to work with the willing. And sometimes you just got to accept that you can't put all your energy into people who don't want to hear it. You just got to get to the folks who do. And so that was why I was saying, okay, if the podcast is the thing that you have to already kind of, you're an adult, you kind of know about this, or you know a lot about it, and you're motivated for it, you're going to want to engage. And that's who I'm targeting on this. And I'm not really trying to go and convert people as much as just speak to people who already have this need and say, where is this? Here it is for you. But that's why the next thing I was thinking is like, man, if we don't start reaching the youth with this message now, then 20 years from now, we still going to be saying the same podcast, and it's going to be the same percentage of people who are not engaging. And so I thought about, okay, well, I can start looking at building an entrepreneurship mentoring program and curriculum, but I hadn't considered starting with very young kids. But I think you're right. It is a matter of, elementary, middle school, high school needs to be at different stages. I have to change my thinking about how do I present this to a 5 or 6 or 7 year old versus somebody who's, kind of already got a little bit of advanced mathematics and some experience with working projects and working in teams and things like that. But so I took that down. It's like, build it in stages. The younger, the better. So I'm gonna start thinking about how to go about it that way.
And see, that's also the beauty of teaching. And, as a pastor, I'm a pastor teacher. See, that's part of a pastor job description, to shepherd and teach. You shepherd and teach. You also have to work with people. You see the dynamics of their lives. You have to, certainly help meet needs and all that. But then you got to go back and you got to make sure you teach them. See, the things that you see people are falling short in, now you got to go and show them the way, and you do that by teaching them. So I'm just saying, we certainly need to implement that to our young babies, to start with our children, the young children. And like you said, come up with the different concepts and the different phases where it's implemented, for the next age group, whatever the case may be. See, terminology-wise, I may not be exactly on point as far as the terminology, but the motivation and the intent is the thing that I'm basically looking at. Now, there's something interesting that you said that had a thought to come back to me, Gerald. I had an opportunity to go to the Philippines on a mission trip.
Mm-hmm.
As a matter of fact, I made 2 trips over there as a pastor. I went over with several other pastors, and we flew into Manila, and we went to the island of Mindanao. Now, in the Philippines, there's a lot of poverty there, a lot of poverty over there. And, your heart goes out to people and all of that. You can give the people the shirt off your back and all that. And you said something interesting early on, but that's not going to solve the problems, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can give the person your shirt, but that's not going to alleviate poverty, okay? And the pastor that was heading the project saw that I was struggling with this a little bit. And see, this was for my development, for my growth, because I wanted to help everybody. You see what I'm saying? We can become diehards if we're not careful, become aesthetic, sometimes. And I don't certainly consider myself an aesthetic person, but I feel like it's more in the sense of having compassion for people and all of that. But even that, if we're not careful, can run amok with it. We have to be very careful with that. And what he told me, man, was something that has changed my life tremendously in dealing with people, and especially people who are in need. And I'm not just talking about poverty, in need, period. See, we can be in need as it relates to being saved. We can be in need as it relates to finances or, whatever. It's just whatever the need is. He told me, he said, if you have a group of people, you see all these people, they all stand in need. He said, which person are you going to help? If you had 10 people, for example, that had the very same need, which person would you help, Gerald?
You asking me directly?
Yes, sir. I'm asking you directly.
Honestly, my answer to that question is whichever one of them shows that they want to make the change the most. Because when I was in the Marines, as a young corporal in the Marines, leading a few Marines, you end up you got people and you're supposed to lead them and teach them, and you're trying to make sure that they can do everything they need to do to stay alive and keep the brothers alive around them. And you have some folks who are just there and they'll do exactly what you tell them to do perfectly every single time, but that's all they really are there to do. And you have some folks who you're going to have to fight them every step of the way in order to keep them from getting themselves killed. And yes, I was one of those Marines when I was younger. And that's all you can do with them. But then you have some who you see that acuity, and you see you can even see the light bulbs going off in their head when they see something or learn something. And you can tell that person's going to be a leader. And then you start pushing them a little bit harder, and you start challenging them more than the others, because you see that they can take it and that they are going to be the one to succeed you. That was the way that I approached leading in the Marines. And I think that'd be the same answer I would give you to this question is, if I got 10 people in front of me and they all need the same thing, I'm looking for the ones who are going to take what I have to give them and do something with it immediately.
I think you have answered well, Grasshopper. That's the very same thing. He just said it in a different way, Gerald. This is what he told me. He said, you help the one that the Holy Spirit leads you to help. See, that's synonymous with what you say. You look at the one that has the motivation, the desire, or whatever. It all obviously depends on the situation.
Mm-hmm.
But you help the one that you are led to help. Now, that goes right back to what you just asked. You were just asking me, just an opinion about, and you said the middle school. Now, that's the issue. Which group are you led to help? Which group do you want to focus on first? That's your answer right there. Whether it's middle, whomever. It really don't matter who it is, but we have to start, somewhere. And we start where we're led to start.
Mm-hmm.
We know there's plenty of needs out there. There's a plethora of needs. We're not worried about that. The Bible let us know that the harvest is plenty, but the laborers are few. That's the issue. There's a lot of need out there, so we have to start somewhere. So you start with the ones that you are led to start with.
Indeed. I know I've been paralyzed before with I don't know where to go because there's so many different places to go. And I've kind of gotten to that point where I just say, this is the first thing that came to my mind and I know it's going to be helpful. So I'm just going to get started and we'll see what happens from there. So, yeah.
Because it says that your gift will make room for you. So here's the thing. Who do you have, you know who you have fellowship with. You know who you have contact with. It may come from the church. It may not. It may come from a school system. It may not. See, you will deal with the ones who are open to you.
Mm-hmm.
It could be a community center that you volunteer at or whatever. Here again, it don't have to be the status quo. See, most people think most of the gatherings and things come from the church or that's tradition or it comes from, the schools and all of that. Well, it does in certain ways, but there's also certain activities that people have set up now that get actually more children involved than what they have in school or the churches. For instance, AAU basketball. I mean, the participation is outstanding. They have more participation in AAU basketball, I'm just saying this as an example, than they do in the public school system.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just saying that if you have, relationship with certain entities, certain groups and stuff, it's no telling where some of these things will spring from. You just never know, man.
So I think
all you got to do is be willing.
I think you just answered my question for me because, living up here in Omaha, I don't have any roots in this community, but I made connection with the Nebraska Black Chamber of Commerce. And then there's a men's ministry group that I meet with every month, third Saturday of the month. We go and we either have breakfast together or we go to the gym and work out. It's a good group of brothers that are involved in multiple churches around the community. And there's actually a couple of pastors that are in the group too. And I think you just answered my question, because that's where my end is. I already have connections with folks at a few different churches. And so that'd be the easiest place for me to start.
There you go. And see, Gerald, we don't have to overcomplicate things. Mm-hmm. We start where we are. We start with what we got. Man, it's a beautiful thing to just faith rest in the things that, God has provided for us and all of that. Here again, because of the brainwashing that is done in the world, see, it keeps the people looking and running after something that, it's like chasing a carrot. The bunny is chasing it, but he's never going to catch it. Mm-hmm. And that's what the world does to us in general. When what we have to do is stop, just simply stop, and begin to go in the direction that we are led to go in. And you can change the dynamic not only of your life, but other people's lives also.
Mm-hmm. So I want to change directions on this conversation real quick, because we've been going for a while now, and we've been talking this incredible conversation again, but I still hadn't got your businesses out here, especially the project that you're starting right now with the 3-on-3 basketball league, which I think is, this is something that you have this right on the front burner that's about to get started. And I would, as much as I would love to keep this thing going for, 2, 3, 4 hours of what we got to share with each other, because every bit of it is what we need. I want to make sure that I take your time to get the name of your business out there and anything that you want to promote on that project too. So there's 2 things I want to try to do. The first thing is going to be, I want to go backwards. You were talking about failures and how important that is. And I was going to ask you to tell me about the biggest challenge that you've faced in being a business owner, or something that you had to overcome. And then I was going to try to get you to tell me more about the 3-on-3 basketball league that you're starting and promoting that. So I'll hand it back over to you. But those 2 things are what I want to wrap us up with and get us get that information out into the world. So first question, what biggest challenge that you faced as a business owner and how you've overcome it?
Well, I think primarily the biggest challenge that we face as a business owner, I think, is start. I think so many people, they want to do something, they don't know how to do it. They are challenged in the sense that they're going to have to make certain sacrifices and all of that they don't feel like that they have the educational background. Now, see, all of these things that I'm mentioning is part of what I struggle with myself. Because the world says that you should have, a certain degree of education. The world says that, you should be at a certain place in your life. The world says that, statistic-wise, you are not going to be successful, because you come from the wrong side of the tracks. You are a black person, and not only that, you are a black person without certain achievement. You are not even at the top of the class. So why would you even try? So the first thing I had to eliminate was that battle of the mind, and I think that's what every business owner first and foremost struggle with. When you can overcome that battle with the mind, I think you're ready to go. I think you can face any obstacle. Anything that comes your way, you're ready to handle every challenge once you overcome that obstacle. And that's what I had to do. Now, for me, I have obstacles and challenges every day, but I consider myself an overcomer. It's exciting for me now to have obstacles and challenges, because I know eventually I'm going to overcome them. I know I'm going to get the job done. I'm going to persevere. I'm going to get it done. And that's the mentality you have to be successful. And that's why every endeavor that I have been led to do, every business that I have started, it all comes from that attribute. It comes from that mindset, each one of them. And this particular idea of this new business venture I have, Boss 3, and basically the company is Udell Enterprises. And we have in Udell Enterprises a basketball league, a 3-on-3 basketball league called Boss 3. But the primary objective of Boss 3 is to minister really to the whole man. I believe, as a believer, we are trichotomous. We're spirit, soul, and body. So therefore, we have to deal with the whole man. I think it's not enough to teach a child basketball drills, to teach him how to shoot a ball. I'm saying we should teach him how to shoot a ball. That's going to be part of what we do. But that's not all we need to do. And I think most basketball programs, what they do, they are set up primarily just to teach basketball. But what we're doing with Boss 3, we're trying to deal with the whole man, the whole person. So I've taken a step back. And it's taken me some time to do this because I went along with the status quo for a long time in just being involved in certain semi-pro leagues and all of that. I own a semi-pro team right now, but it's for adults. But I want to take a step back and to reinvest in the community, to reinvest in our young people, and to give them a hand up, what we've talked about tonight. I want to give them a hand up, not a hand out. They not only need to know how to shoot a ball, they need to know how to manage their books. They need to know how to manage their checkbooks. They need to know how to make investments. They don't have to make it as an NBA player. They can make it as a businessman. They may enjoy sports that may not be what's going to lead them to success financially or whatever, but they can be successful when they know how to handle finances, when they know how to provide for their family, when they know how to help support their communities. Now you're making an investment that will last for eternity. So that's primarily what Boss 3 is all about. That's the dynamics of it. We're going to deal with the whole person, spirit, soul, and body. We're going to teach them. Now, we're not trying to do church with them. But see, since I am the church, once again, the church is people, then I'm going to teach what I know. So I'm certain this business is from a biblical perspective. The dynamics of it is biblical principles, which I believe most businesses are built on those principles, successful businesses. So definitely Boss 3 is built upon biblical principles. We're going to reach out to the young men and young ladies. We're going to encourage them to, become acquainted with Jesus. We're not making that a requirement of any sort, but we're certainly going to encourage that because that's what we believe. It's not a requirement for them to be a part of Boss 3, but we're certainly going to encourage that. And we're also going to, like I said, we're going to teach them, we're going to mentor them about life, coaching them about life, how to be successful young men and women. And then, of course, we're going to teach them, we're going to have trainers, basketball trainers, that's going to teach them about basketball. And we're going to have trainers to teach them about physical fitness and all of that. So what we're doing, we are looking at ministering to the whole man, to meet the need for the whole person. We do not want our young people to be insignificant people in the sense that they are not fully developed. He can be developed. For instance, a young person can be developed in their basketball skills, but if they hadn't developed their mind, if they haven't developed their relationship with Christ, then still, they are not going to be very successful in life. Because we can see a lot of young men, very skilled young men, all it takes is one injury and they are down for life. And if they have been dependent upon just a sport to be their source, not understanding the creator is the source. He's the source of everything. And God uses people as resources. Mm-hmm. So they didn't use the basketball as a resource. They used basketball as the source. And if you do that, you're going to lose. And right. That's what a lot of people have done.
Well, not even with injury, because a lot of people don't even get to that point because they were the best at that sport, but they didn't even get the grades to be able to play on their high school team, or they played on the high school team and they didn't get the grades to get into a college to play. I don't know the source of this quote. Why? I know it's supposedly from Magic Johnson, but I didn't hear him say it, I guess I would say. But this is third person. But from what I understand, someone a long time ago asked Magic Johnson, who's the toughest basketball player that he ever had to play up against. And he gave the person interviewing him a name that nobody had ever heard of. And it was a cat he played street ball with in New York that he said this was the coldest ball player I have ever faced in my life. It's like you never hear his name because he didn't have the grades to go. And I don't know where Magic's from. It might have been he was playing in New York or I don't know. But I remember the name of a dude. He said it was a guy who was in New York. But he could not, his life decisions made it where he could not get to the NBA. Whereas a person like a Magic or a Michael or a Larry Bird, the only difference between those superstars we know and the superstars who never made it was life decisions and that belief that just being great at a sport is going to take me where I need to go and not rounding everything else out.
Yes, sir. That's a great point. That's absolutely right.
So how does the program, how is your program going to be set up? Because you were saying that you're going to teach them, not only basketball skills, but, how to manage the books, how to manage your checkbook. Is it going to be an inclusive educational program at some points and then basketball at other points? And how are you going to have that structured?
Yeah, we're going to have sessions set up. The mentoring aspect only of the program. Those same children that pays the fee, see, the very same child that pays the fee to participate in the 3-on-3 league, they must participate in these other activities also. They have to attend a session, the mentoring session. And that's when we're going to deal with various aspects of finances and all of that. Then we're going to deal with the life skill thing, the life coaching aspect, whereby we're going to tell them, about higher being, all of that. You see what I'm saying? Because people take for granted everyone knows about Christ. They do not. Every household is not under that type of tutelage. They are not raised to believe in God and all of that. So that's just an offering that we're going to offer to them. And here again, we're just simply making this information available. It is nothing mandatory, anything of the sort, but it is mandatory for them to attend. But other than that, it is a free offering. It's a grace offering for each one of them. And see, it's up to them to take and use it for the good, to use it for their benefit. And see, as they progress, we will know, being watchful of the young people, we will know those who have the desire to advance more in certain areas and stuff, and then we can seek out those young people and we can selectively deal with them in a certain manner. They may need more attention as far as educational wise, or we may feel like that they have the potential to obviously be a greater achiever, educational wise, in finances or whatever, and we must begin to afford them those opportunities. See, I'm not trying to be the cure-all for everything. I just want to be a conduit. Mm-hmm. And see, I think it's so important that each one of us stay, in our place. See, I'm not trying to take the place of anyone who is more adapt to doing certain things or more educated in doing certain things. I just want to occupy my space, and I want to be used as a conduit to elevate these young people. See, what is happening, they are not being afforded these opportunities. They only get opportunities. See, the massive number of the young people in our community, they get the opportunity to participate in sports, to play on teams and all this kind of stuff. Or sport is offered. It's offered in the public school, or it's offered at the community centers and all that. But the other dynamic of it is not offered, and that's what is missing. So in this platform, we're going to offer the life coaching, the mentoring, and the sports training. In this particular case, the basketball.
Okay. And where physically is this going to be located? Is this in Little Rock, or where is the initial location going to be for the league?
Right now, we are licensed to operate in Little Rock, Arkansas. And where we're going to start, I have it set up with a community center in the city. And it's a beautiful center. It really is. The center has just been recently built. It's probably, it's not even a year old right now. So I'm working with the director there, where he's allowed me to use the space and the gym. We're working together in doing that, and we're going to kick it off next year, 2018 is when we're going to start it up. So right now, everything is in the preliminary stages. We're getting everything ready, the website and all of that, where the kids can register and do all that. So we're preparing for it. I'm excited about it. And that's just going to be one league that we're going to have as it relates to the young people. We're also going to have a league set up for the ladies. Girls also have the same opportunities as the boys. And also we're going to have a competitive league also. And I also have a league set up. And I'm excited about this because I have got a lot of interest from the community, the business community. I'm going to have a league set up, Gerald, where it will be businesses is going to be participating in this league. They will either be playing themselves, the people who own the businesses, or some of their employees. This is a great opportunity for them to market their business. To brand their businesses in the community. And it's an opportunity for the community to see them in an environment that they hadn't been accustomed to seeing them in. In other words, in the same environment that they are, these young people and things, to see them participate in playing basketball. They are not trying to be NBA players or anything of the sort. They are just simply enjoying the sport of basketball, the camaraderie, the sportsmanship, and all those things. Mm-hmm. So I'm excited about this particular league also. I have some businesses already that have signed on to it. They really love the idea about that and doing that. So I'm excited about that. So we have a lot of things. Here again, Gerald, the same thing what you asked me, it applies to me also. So where do I start? I'll tell you exactly where I start. I start with the ones who I'm led to start with. I'm going to start with these young people, but I'm also going to start with these business owners also. I'm definitely going to start with them because I've already gotten the interest, so that already let me know that that's where God wants me at right now.
Sounds good.
But we plan on implementing these others. We won't do them all, of course, at the same time. I primarily will start with the young people, and I'm going to start with this business league also. Those are going to be the first one we're going to launch.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I know we talked at the very beginning about your website still being under construction. Is there a place right now where if anybody's listening to this show at any time and they want to reach out to you or talk about trying to sign up for the league ahead of time as it's coming, do you have communications portals set up where they can reach you? And if so, what are those ways? What's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
Well, right now, the best way to reach me is by calling or by email that I prefer. And they can reach me, they can email me at Eugene, Eugene, Udell, Udell at yahoo.com. Eugene Udell at yahoo.com. That's my personal email. And also they can reach me by calling area code 501-850-2002. 501-850-2002. But right now, that's the best way to get in contact with me, and I can share more information with them. And I'm trying to just keep it like that for now until we get everything set up. Then we will obviously have our Facebook and Twitter, Instagram, and the website and everything set up where we'll be able to really launch a marketing, opportunities for the people and for ourselves too also.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, so before we close this thing down, you said something earlier that I wanted to reach back and ask you about, because this is also something that's coming on my plate soon, I think, if what I heard was correct. So you told me that your businesses fall under Udell Enterprises. Now, is that basically a holding company that you have that owns your other businesses?
No.
Okay.
No, it's not. And see, I'm here again, Gerald. You see me using the term over and over, simplicity. See, I think we need to keep our businesses simple.
Okay.
I think we need to keep our business structure simple. And what I mean about that is this. I started off as a proprietorship with the janitorial company.
Mm-hmm.
And all of that. But now I have changed it to a partnership, and the partner is my wife. She's my partner.
Okay.
So the reason why I say that, it is very easy for us to keep up with the components of the business and also the dynamics of the finances as it relates to the RES and everything else. It's easy. I think sometimes people overcomplicate things. People try to put up, these what I call business shelter. They're trying to cover up a business with a business or shell companies and things like that. Personally, I don't think that's necessary. I think when a person gets to a certain stage, I certainly think that they should incorporate the business. But I don't think that incorporation is the primary thing for someone starting out. Because I spent a lot of money trying to initially incorporate my semi-pro basketball business.
Mm-hmm.
Spent a lot of money that if I had had the right advice, I wouldn't have spent that money. I could have used that money to help build the business instead of trying to shelter something that I really didn't have. See what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I really didn't have anything of any essence, but I was trying to protect it. So first, we need to build our business. Then we need to learn how to protect our business. But before I need to spend money on trying to protect something, I first need to build something. Now, of course, I know some people feel differently about that, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah.
So I try to keep my business as simple as possible, and I'm talking about the structure of the business. Now,
that's some really good advice. Yeah.
Is a separate entity. Has nothing to do with my other businesses whatsoever. Okay. My DBA is Boss 3.
Okay.
And the league is set up Boss 3, But the business itself, the establishment of the business is Udell Enterprise. So I will be able to pass this business down to my family. In the event something happened to me, all my family have to do is just to continue this business if they so desire to do so. And I believe that they will. And then I got it set up in my will and all of that. But I have learned to keep things as simple as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think we can overcomplicate things. And when we do that, I think it leads to problems. I've seen this in other people in their business ventures, where I've seen people try to do some of these things and it came back to hunt them. So I've always tried to endeavor to do it a little different way. Because I initially tried to do it that way also. But what I was doing, I was trying to protect something that I actually didn't have.
That you hadn't built yet. And that makes so much sense to what you were saying before, almost the exact same as borrowing money to start a business. You borrowing money for something that you don't even have yet. And this is almost the exact same way you spending money to protect something that you haven't even built yet. Because I've been considering that exact thing, because I have so many small business projects that I'm doing right now. You know, selling things online is one thing. And then I have, you know, this podcast media company, I don't really know what to call it, project that I'm doing over here that's completely separate. And I've been considering, you know, if I just created an LLC that was a holding company, and then I could have, you know, this business over here falls under that holding company, and this business falls under that holding company. So they kind of both are owned by this kind of overarching company over here. I didn't know if that would make it more complex or less complex than just having separate different entities. But I like that feedback you just gave me right there. It gives me something to think about.
Well, what I have found now, Gerald, I understand the concept that you're talking about, holding company. I think I understand it well. But the problem is, and certainly we will learn this as young entrepreneurs or whatever the case may be, that if you as the entrepreneur, the individual, you are the one that is held solely responsible for your entity. If it's an LLC, I don't care if your LLC is under whatever name or whatever, you are the one responsible for that LLC. It's the person. Now, you get certain protection from the state. I'm not saying that you don't. But you are not solely protected from everything simply because you set up an LLC. It goes right back to the individual. So I found it best. Now, this is just me. Because of some bad information I had gotten originally, and some of the things that I've learned from trial and error, from trial and error, I found out that it's best that we set up our individual enterprises and keep them separate, totally separate. And it's the same concept as it relates to actually LLC. See, you can set up a DBA. All you have to do is pay for the DBA, and you can set up 20 DBAs under your name, and each one of them you can file separate for each one of those entities by themselves, and you don't have to spend all that money. And I'm saying this specifically for young entrepreneurs starting off. You don't have to spend all that money trying to set up LLCs and all of that. And I know that's the first thing most people try to do, because I did the very same thing. And see, in the state that I live in the state of Arkansas, Gerald, this is very important also. See, in Arkansas, you pay franchise tax every year on LLC. You have to pay $100, and I believe it's $175 a year. So just think about it now. If you have several, like in my particular case, I actually have 4 different businesses. If I had each of those businesses set up under an LLC, then look what I have to say.
Yeah.
See, we have to take these things into consideration. Compared now to a DBA, you pay $25 to register a DBA at the county, and that's your brand. And all you got to do is get your VIN number. But these are things that I learned later. I didn't know that at first. I didn't have the right information. But because of certain counselors and certain people that was part of my life, you know, in the latter years, I got opportunity to learn some things. And I'm talking about, here again, I'm talking about operating, starting from the small beginning. Now, I'm not talking about starting a $1 million enterprise. If I was starting and had the capacity to start a $1 million enterprise, I assure you I would incorporate.
Mm-hmm.
There's no doubt about it. I would get a S corporation starting off. But for those young entrepreneurs, those people who are trying to start independent businesses, start small, start where you are. All you want to have is the proper protection. You want to be legal with the government. You want to pay your taxes. See, the Bible teaches us to render to Caesar what's due to Caesar. You want to pay your taxes and all that, but you don't want to overspend. You don't want to overgive to the government. That makes no sense. And once again, the system is set up now to get our money. We have to understand that this is a system that is set up. It is set up to take entrepreneur money. Young entrepreneurs. If young entrepreneurs don't know what they're doing, then the system will surely get your money.
Mm-hmm.
They will eat you up and spit you out. And it has nothing to do with whether or not you're making any money. The system is set up where it has nothing to do with that now. Your business may not make a dime, but you're still going to have to pay that money. So if that's the case, we need to set it up as cheaply as we possibly can, and we need to make sure that it's legal and it's solid, it's sovereign. We got a sovereign business. That's the important thing.
That's a lot. That's a lot to think about. Now, I appreciate that because I have been kicking that back and forth in my head of setting up just one company to own the other companies and everything. But you're right.
See,
you spend
the best
more
thing, Gerald, from your state.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what you have to research.
Yeah. See,
that's the key right there.
And Nebraska's easy. It really is. Now, it is very business friendly, especially small business friendly here. That annual tax we don't have for LLCs. And even, the only real thing is obviously you got to pay your taxes on what you earn. And then right. I think once every other year, you just got to fill out a paper just telling them, hey, I still exist. That's really it. There's not much that you have to do here. And it doesn't cost too much to set up an LLC here. It cost me about $115. And so it's not hard to do at this spot, but you're right. Every state is different. Yeah, it was just a one-time fee. It was just honestly, the only thing that makes it more expensive is if I have more pages in my articles of organization, because it's a flat $100 fee, and then they charge you, I think $5 per page that you file. So if your articles of organization are longer, then it'll cost you more. But really, it's just a flat 100 fee plus the filing.
Well, man, I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's not bad here.
Yeah.
But you're right. It is it is, state specific, because I used to live in California, and I would never start a business out there because not only is it super expensive, but they try to get you coming and going and sitting still and everything out there.
And see, that's the thing we have to be cognizant of. And see, here again, it goes back to some of the things we've been talking about. We must continuously educate ourselves. We got to know what's going on. We got to stay abreast of these things. We have to be on top of them, not only with the state, but also with the federal government. It's very important. And that's why any new entrepreneur, he or she needs to be involved with a good accountant. And it needs to be an accountant who has a teaching spirit. That's something that I learned. You do not need an accountant who don't want to take the time and show you certain things, and teach you certain things. Because you need to know about your money. You need to know how it operates. You need to know the reason why for everything. And if they're not willing to tell you that, then that's not the right person.
All right. I'm taking notes. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think all these things are important keys, if we're going to be successful. See, here again, I don't care how excited a person may be about starting a business and all that. See, if we don't do these foundational things, if we don't set these things up on the proper foundation, then for that reason it can fail. It may not mean that it wasn't a good idea, that it couldn't be successful. But many times a lot of businesses fail because they are not established properly. And I also believe, Gerald, that the reason why a lot of people in our communities don't start businesses is because I think it's that mentality that the power to be will take what you got, you build something and they take it and all that. But, we have the same laws in this country. And we know that the laws in this country hadn't always been kind to us. But those laws are on the books for a reason, and they will work for our community as well as others.
Mm-hmm. We just got to start taking advantage of them.
Got to start taking advantage of it. That's exactly right. Don't let fear hinder you from taking advantage of it.
So with that, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I just said, or ignorance. Believing that the person, is going to take, what we set up and all that. Well, all you got to do is set it up properly. People can't take what you got. You set it up right.
Right. They can take a job away because that don't belong to you. But if you set up your own business right,
that's right.
The law is there to protect that.
Yes, sir.
Honestly, I think that is a great spot for us to come to a wrap up. I ask one question every time I do one of these interviews to end it. And honestly, I think this whole show has been this question, but I still got to ask it. I want to know what your number one piece of advice is for our community, this whole Buy Black community, the audience that's listening to this show, whether they're a consumer or an entrepreneur. What is your number one piece of advice that you would give to the community?
Oh my God, there is so much, but I'm gonna stay true to what I believe in, and also to be obedient to what I've been asked. I think the number one thing here that I would recommend or encourage my Black community is that you don't borrow unless you have the ability to pay. I think that borrowing is one of the most detrimental things that has occurred in our community that this system has utilized to make us that permanent underling that keeps us from advancing, to keep us from excelling. In other words, the Bible says it makes you a slave. The borrower always becomes enslaved to the person that lends the money, whether it's the government, whether it's a personal loan, or whatever the case may be. So I would encourage all young entrepreneurs, please don't borrow. Start where you are. If you are not willing to front yourself, then you're probably not ready to start a business. It's investing in yourself. You should be the first one that's going to invest the first $100 in yourself. And like I said, Mr. Johnson, his parents invested. They put their home up. They invested. They borrowed $500 so he could start the business. So I think that we have to learn to invest in ourselves. I think if we could do that we can get this thing on the right track and we can get it rolling. I really do. So in other words, you don't forfeit your birthright. Before you even get started, I think so many people forfeit their birthright in the sense that they are borrowing against something that they don't even have. And that's just where the system wants you. The system will have you under control the rest of your life if you're not careful. Even if your business becomes successful, they still have you under their control. So I would encourage them, just simply do not borrow. Please don't borrow. Invest in yourself. Start with what you got. Start small. Don't despise starting small. Start where you are. And I also think that every person should be doing it in our community. I don't think it's for any select people. I think every person can start a business. I think every family should have a business, some kind of business, every family. And I think if we would do that it will change the dynamics of our community. It would change it. If we would start right now, it would change it in a year. Our communities wouldn't look the same. Our communities wouldn't act the same if we would implement that. So I get off my bandwagon now. That's what I think.
I enjoyed it though.
That's the best advice that I could give anyone.
I think that's incredible advice. That's one that I haven't heard yet, but it's one I've heard it, but not on this show. That's the first time that anyone has brought that up in this show. I agree wholeheartedly with it. And even So one of the projects that I have in my head, in fact, it's on my whiteboard right behind me right now in my office, is to write a book on businesses that you can start by bootstrapping, because that's one of the biggest excuses that I hear in our community is I don't have the money to start a business. I don't have $15,000. I don't have $20,000. So it doesn't take that to start a business, unless you're talking about starting, a restaurant or something where you have to have a storefront. But even with that, you can start cooking in your kitchen.
That's right.
So
start a catering service.
Yeah, and I'm
That's
looking
right.
at putting together a book and that's part of the reason why I've been testing these businesses this year. It's because I'm in a position where I am a great employee. I have a great job. It takes care of all the bills. It makes sure my family is fed. And so my time that I can spend on starting a business and failing at that business and getting better at that business and figuring out how to make it run more efficiently and capturing all the steps and all the details, I have that luxury that a lot of our people don't have. They start a business, it's going to have to be successful in order for their life to be successful. I've got a little bit of wiggle room to, let me try this thing, let me try that thing, let me fail at this and then do better next time. And I want to be able to write a detailed book on maybe 3 to 5 businesses that literally will say step by step, here is what you do. Here is how you can do this, how you can market it, how you can build it by spending less than, $500, less than $1,000 total to get this thing off the ground and get you profitable. Because of that exact thing, it's hard for us to borrow money to begin with. But then if we start off by borrowing money, we're just putting ourselves in the exact same situation of being owned. And so if we can start a business without having to put too much money into it, and then it immediately starts creating value that's coming out of it. I mean, now you literally are starting something out of thin air that is now creating wealth.
That's
and
right.
You don't owe anybody for it. And now the quicker that you can create wealth, the quicker that you can look around you in the community and see what can I do with this wealth to help the people around me out. So I know the project that I have in my head falls right along the lines of what you just shared. And so it made me happy to hear it, because that's one of my motivations too, is to help Black people get the confidence to start a business without feeling like they got to borrow money or they got to have a bunch of money in the bank to make it happen.
And I know we're almost at the end here and everything, Gerald, but that brings up so many things in my mind. And one of them is, most businesses are only one generational businesses. And the reason for that is what we just got through talking about. If you start off in the hole, and that's what you're doing with a loan, then what you're doing, you are basically giving away the future for your children and your children's children. And that's why you see when the individual that starts the business pass off the scene, usually the business is in debt, and for them to pay the debt or whatever, they have to dissolve the business. So in other words, the people are paying pennies on the dollar to get your business.
Just so you can get out of debt. Somebody else takes it over and they turn it into a success. Or it just dies.
Or it just dies. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. See, that's poor planning on our part. See, that's going by the system, the status quo, trying to be like everybody else. And see, the system tell you what you need to do is borrow, money. That's what the system tell you. But it makes no sense to have one generational business. It makes no sense. Churches is the same way. You know that. There are churches start, and when the pastor died, the churches died. And the reason that happened is because the infrastructure is not set up properly. They didn't set it up right. It's the same for a business. If you set it up right, it'll last forever. And I think that's what we have to do. We need to learn to reinvest in our communities, but we must make those investments in certainly the right people. Like you said, those people that you are led to help, you got to make the investment in the right people. It's got to be fertile ground, and then you got to make the investment wisely. you got to make sure that they're covered properly. And that's the inner structure to make sure that it's set up, the dynamics of it is set up properly. I think that's so important.
That's awesome. Well, Mr. Udell, I want to call you Eugene because it's just so much more comfortable. But I can't thank you enough for this conversation. That one, you taught me a lot about, I guess, my business venture that I'm doing right now and how I can do it better. But there's just there's no substitute for wisdom. Most of the people I've talked to they're about my age. And they're either a little bit further along than me or a little bit behind me, or, we're all trying to get there, but there's just no substitute to getting these lessons from you and the way that you provided them. I appreciate it.
Well, I tell you, it's been a pleasure, Gerald. I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you, to being a part of your Not Black podcast. I thank you so much, and I guess I have to contribute this to Brandon. I thank Brandon for thinking enough of me to tell you about me. And see, here again, Gerald, that's the same concept. That's how we help one another. And see, Brandon would not have referred me to you if he didn't think I would have been good for you or what you was doing. And see, that's why we have to choose the person that we are led to. And see, it all goes back to the character of the individual. So that means a lot, man.
Well, it's been incredible. And I can't thank you enough for the lessons. And then also, I don't talk about my dad much, but he's always in my head and always in my heart. And it always, it brings a smile to me inside anytime that I hear somebody else talking about my dad the way that you shared. And I appreciate that as well, because he's been gone with 10 years now, and it's still every single day the lessons that I learned from him, the arguments that we had, all the way down to in junior high school, sitting in the truck outside our house with tears running down my face because, he was getting on to me about a basketball game where I wasn't putting my heart into it, and he could tell. And there's one thing that man would never allow was for me to give less than my best. I could go out and have the worst game in the world, but if he saw me put 100% in, he wouldn't say a word. But he could always tell when I was holding back or when I was afraid or when I was, not giving my all, and he would let me have it. And even to this day, that's the thing that I judge myself on is, did I put everything I had into this? If so, I'm good. If not, I need to go back and check myself. So anytime somebody can remind me of those lessons and let me sit here and just think and talk about my dad, it's priceless to me. And this has been a blessing filled conversation. I thank you so much.
Absolutely. The old people said, and I'm going to stop. The old people used to say something like this, Gerald. Your dad was somebody, man. You know what I'm saying?
I hear that.
He was. He certainly holds a special place in my heart, man. And, didn't know him for a long time, but I'm just talking about the impact that he had on my life in just a short period of time. So it's amazing, man. And that's how God works, man. He uses people.
Absolutely.
And that's what we must do in our own community. Yes, sir.
Well, we'll do it. Well, hey, I'm going to let you go, and I really appreciate it. I'm going to get this thing. So tomorrow morning is when this is going to air. So when we get off the phone, I'm going to go back through in my editing software. I'm going to clean up the audio on both ends. And honestly, I don't plan on taking anything out of this because everything has just been phenomenal. But I'm going to get it all cleaned up. I'm going to put the intro, outro on it, and then I'm going to set it up to shoot out tomorrow morning. And so what I'll do is when it's scheduled to go out to Facebook and all of that, I'm going to have it, I'm going to tag you in it so that you'll see it when it hits the timeline, and then you can reshare it and blast it out to whoever you want to, so that they know to listen to the show and to listen to this conversation. And it'll be out there for a week. I may do a show this Thursday that follows up on one or two of the themes that we talked about today. But with everything that we covered, I don't even know if I need to do that because we hit it all in detail. But that's what I'm going to do now. It'll be out tomorrow. And then what I'd like to do is just stay in touch so that when you get closer to the launch of Boss 3, you've got the website and you've got your social media and everything up, I can come back through and come back to the show and then mention it so that people listening in will be able to reach out and connect and sign up. Because, obviously being from Arkansas, a lot of my audience-ship is in Arkansas already. So we'll make sure that we get you properly promoted.
Man, that's great. That's fantastic.
Well, all right.
I'm looking forward.
Yeah, I hope it makes a good impact. I can tell you right now, Brandon's episode is already the second most downloaded that I've had. The only one that's been downloaded more than his is one that I did that was about 5 secrets that you should know before paying another company to set up your LLC. That thing's been downloaded about twice as much as any other episode, but then Brandon's is second. And so I really believe that we put this one out there, it's going to be the same. You cover so much good information on this show. I feel like it's going to shoot right to the top the same way. And I hope that translates into signups for your program. So you just have to let me know. Let me know how it goes.
Oh, I certainly will.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time tonight. I'm gonna go ahead and get off, and I will be talking to you again soon, sir.
Okay, thank you, Gerald.
All right, thank you.
Good night, man.
Yes, sir. You too. Hey guys, that was a powerful, inspiring conversation that I had with Pastor Eugene Udell, and honestly, that's one of the most in-depth and emotional conversations that I've been a part of in years. And I'm glad that we were able to capture all that and put it to you guys in the audience. Coming out of that conversation, there's a couple of things that I want to announce about this project that really helped me to solidify. So when we finally get the Buy Black Podcast website up, I know when I first launched the show, I said that I was going to, monetize the website, monetize the directory, but I've changed my mind on that now. So once we get the directory up, I am going to set up the Black-owned business directory, and it is going to be free. It's not going to cost anything. So any Black-owned business that we can get verified that wants to be featured in this directory, it'll just be a sign-up sheet. We'll need to get, the validating information about the business so we can set up the directory listing properly. But I want every business out there, regardless of what their budget is, to be able to have access to this directory and have access to this audience. And so that's one change I'm making to this. If you are a Black business owner, if you know a Black business owner and they want or need more marketing exposure, start contacting me now so that once the website is up, I'll already have a list of people we can go and start getting in. So start contacting me now about getting your listing into the website. You can just email me directly at gjones@buyblackpodcast.com, and I will start taking business names and information that I can pass to my developer so that we can start getting them into the directory. And another side of this, it always has been this way, but I need to reiterate, being featured on this show doesn't cost anything. I'm not asking anything of you as a business owner. So if you're listening to the podcast out there, you have a business that you want to promote, that you have a story that you want to tell to the community, reach out to me. Again, email, hit me on social, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. All of them, I am at Buy Black Podcasts, and it is me. I'm the only one running this project. And so if you reach out to me on any one of those, my email or any of my social media, you're going to get directly to me. And just reach out. Let me know what your story is. We'll hook up on the phone. We'll talk. And if I feel like it's a good fit and we could really add some value to the community by having you on the show, we'll schedule it and we'll get you on. As you heard, this is all about getting more exposure for our Black-owned businesses to a larger audience, to the marketplace that is looking for them, that's looking to support them, looking to support you. And so let me know if you fit that bill. Reach out to me and I will happily get on the phone with you, and we'll get you the exposure that your business needs in order to help you be successful, because that's what this project is here to do. So since this was an extra long episode, I'm not going to hold you guys super long afterwards. Again, the one thing that I ask, if you got value out of this conversation, if you feel like somebody else out there needs to hear what we were talking about today, click that share button on your podcast app. Send it to Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, wherever you spend the most time, you have the most connections. Go ahead and share this podcast episode so we can get as many people as possible out here as part of the community, growing this project so that we can make that global impact that we are meant to make on our community. Thanks for joining me again today, and I will catch you in the next episode. Thank you for being part of the Buy Black podcast community. If you're enjoying the show, I'd appreciate reading your 5-star review in iTunes. Join us next time for another empowering episode.